3, 2, 1. Man, man, boy, boy, man.
Yes.
Yeah, didn't do that one before.
I love that.
Who said that, by the way?
And it was a Canadian. Oh,
Okay.
This goes deep. When I was, God, I must have been like 17, and like Call of Duty videos were all on like trending all the time. Do you remember people would they would steal the titles and thumbnails, that like Reply Girl type thing?
Yeah.
There was one of these Reply type channels that was like this Canadian like COD player, and he had this really distinct voice, and I was always commenting on his videos, and
Oh, you got him to
I guess
say
I
it.
annoyed him, and he shouted me out. He shouted me out in one of his videos.
It wasn't even a request. Anyway,
was-
I'm Adam from Your Movie Sucks. This is Sardonicast. Before we go any further, we forgot to do that part.
Oh,
Hi,
yeah.
everyone. I'm Ralph Movie Maker.
And I'm Alex Raichi, and yeah, what are we talking about? Space Jam.
Man, boy, boy, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the best
Man, Boy,
channel.
Man. Yeah.
So that was
the most
your
ongoing
idol on YouTube?
album of all
What's
time.
The guy did that?
Yeah, my idol. Yeah, I'll never forget him.
That's
okay.
awesome. Because that used to appear at the beginning of your Man, Man, Boy, Boy, Man videos channel. I don't know how far back it was,
yeah.
but I didn't even watch it again recently. It was just so distinct and memorable.
That's good to know. I'm glad
Yeah.
it really is left an impression.
But yeah, it was confusing because I was like, that doesn't sound British. Who said that? No, it makes sense.
Nah, just some random Canadian guy.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Apparently everybody feels like shit except me today, which is like Bizarro world.
Yeah.
I feel fine.
Yeah, I feel kind of under the weather. I said that before we started.
hmm
I'm dying.
Yeah, and I shouldn't be feeling under the weather, but I kind of a lame morning if I'm being real. Of course, because of the pandemic, I haven't been to the dentist in like a year.
Same.
So
and I had postponed it
I've been
before that
sorting
point.
that stuff out.
It's been too long.
I've been sorting all that stuff out the last few weeks. So I had an appointment this morning. It booked in a couple of weeks ago. Of course, it happens to line up with like this insane heat wave we're having in the UK
Oh
right
shit,
now.
we just had one a few weeks ago.
Yeah. I remember reading about how insane it was getting in Canada too. But here, we're just totally not prepared for it in any way. So I'm at the dentist, and they're doing all their dentist like bullshit using their gels and stuff. But because of the heat,
Oh no.
it's like not working properly. So somehow like
They're like melting.
I don't know, like all the tools and like like from your perspective, it's just like hands like in your face and plastic and
Yeah.
tools being shoved everywhere. I didn't know exactly what was going on, but like some like bit of plastic or thing was stuck in between my teeth, and the dentist
God.
couldn't remove it.
That's terrifying.
And they were like yanking, trying to pull it away
Oh
from
my
my head, and
God.
they like couldn't do it. So they like repositioned my head, yanked as hard as they could, got it out, but in the process sliced the edge of my smile like the fucking Joker from The Dark Knight.
Oh my God.
And they had to put a stitch in.
Holy
So
shit.
you've got a
So
Joker
that's how you got
face
those
now.
scars, huh? Yeah.
So I'm literally the Joker
Yeah.
now.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
And even despite all
My
that
God.
pain, it was not as miserable as sitting through Space Jam and New
Oh
Legacy.
my God. Perfect
Oh, we
segue.
wanna get into Space Jam?
And I would have to imagine that that's probably accurate because it was cancer.
It was painful. Yeah.
I don't think it's a movie.
Wait, I'm glad you started out that
I'm glad
way.
we got that out of the way.
Because like
we all fucking hated the movie. I mean, yeah. Space Jam and New Legacy, what a fucking piece of shit.
yeah, the worst thing ever made of all
It
time.
was really bad.
No, do you remember the passion we had for Ready Player One?
Oh yeah,
Oh, dude.
yeah, right, yeah.
Do you remember every bad thing from like the last 20? Well, not even bad thing, just anything you recognize that Warner Bros. Has touched.
Yeah, it was
Ever.
like Ready Player One though. Like it reminded me just of that. Just like a bunch of references on the screen. Like, do you know this? Do you know Clockwork Orange? Do you know Batman? Do you know LeBron James? Do you know Nike? That's the whole movie. It's the whole
Yeah.
movie. There's nothing else going on but references and selling you shit.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't even know how anyone can watch this shit. Honestly, it's like a whole new level of like
A whole new legacy.
cynical corporate. Yeah, a whole new level of cynical corporate.
No, it is because I didn't think it could go lower than Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Because there's this trend with these Warner Bros. Movies that I think was started with the Lego Movie. Because you remember in that movie it is combining a bunch of Warner Bros. You know, it's got Star Wars in there, the superhero
Yeah.
DC characters are in there. That must have like flicked some switch in the higher ups to just be like, oh, I guess every movie now that we own can just be like a combination of the random properties and IP we have. So they did Ready Player One, it was garbage, and somehow it's like each one is deconstructing this terrible idea even more and more. How can it go lower than this?
The Lego Movie and Ready Player One were films that had a crap ton of references to Warner Brothers properties, but there was at least a purpose towards that happening in the plot and what kind of movie was being made out of it. Because Lego sets already exist of those things, of course. Like a lot of the iconic Lego sets that exist are of other properties that exist already.
Yeah, it does make sense.
The Ready Player One book, the entire purpose of it is to do that nostalgic thing, because the characters in that world are wanting to return to nostalgia of their 80s whatever in the virtual reality. In Space Jam: A New Legacy, there's zero purpose towards this happening, and they just decide, well, I guess now this time they can be in the Warner Brothers algorithm computer, and that's the plot. Like, they tailored the plot to force that to happen, rather than it happening because the plot was already a certain way, right? It's just
and there's no space.
Yeah.
Where's the Space Jam?
Yeah, exactly. They didn't go to
the aliens
space.
From the first movie.
Holy crap,
they
you're
went
right.
into a
There was no
server in
space.
Warner Brothers. Right.
Oh my
but there
God.
was the point where, like, I was watching with my brother. He's like, "Where's space?" I'm like, "Yeah."
It should be called
Where's
like
the
Game
space?
Jam or something.
Yeah,
it's all
server
like
jam.
Wreck-It Ralph in the server.
It was like Wreck-It Ralph.
Space.
It was more like Wreck-It Ralph than
True.
that. Yeah.
Holy shit. I didn't even realize there was no space. And there's basically no jam, too. I mean, the first film had a killer soundtrack. What does this one have? Bullshit.
It has Notorious P.I.G. Come on.
Oh, yeah. That was so good. That was so funny, and I laughed so much and so hard.
That was my breaking point.
At least it wasn't a
where I just couldn't
reference,
take it anymore.
you know? At least it just was a
No,
like
that is a
joke.
reference to
to Notorious B.I.G.
Biggie.
Oh, yeah. True. But,
Yeah, you can't
I
win
guess
this
so.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this movie, it goes under the guise of being a children's film, and that's why I guess it doesn't have to try as hard. Except it isn't a kid's film at all. It isn't for families. It's for man-children. It's for people who like Rick and Morty and Ready Player One and like all these old properties, and they just want to jack off to them. Yeah, like that's all it is. It's just like a bunch of do you know
I couldn't
Batman?
actually.
Like,
Dude,
that's it.
when the audience for the game at the end is literally White Walkers, the characters from Clockwork fucking
There were
Orange,
so many
and
Game
the
of
clown
Thrones
from
references.
It, all these things that
Yeah.
are about like the anti-children's properties.
Yeah.
but they're put like almost
Pepe
more
Le
of the
Pew's
forefront
not
in the
allowed.
fucking tunes. You know when Scorsese got the shit for describing Marvel movies as just like
Theme park
rides.
Yeah, but that's what
that
this
was
is.
what all this was to me. It's even like the structure of it, like the planets are each like little theme park rides, and it's like, oh, what's LeBron James going to look like on this theme park ride? Oh my god, I couldn't believe like how bad this film got, and just ironically, almost the perfect representation it is of how bad these Warner Bros. Movies are, in a similar way to the original Space Jam was of the 90s. It's like a disgusting, overly bloated, full of way too many references, has no personality. It's just about nostalgia.
Way too long.
It's like all the worst shit we've been complaining about for years, like in one movie. I cannot believe what I saw.
It has nothing going on. There's nothing, there's no story, there's no characters, there's no theme. It's just like, it's just references. And they shoehorn in this story with his son, like that stuff was like supposed to be the emotional core. That did not work for me at all. I just thought LeBron James was, I don't think he's the best actor. I think I'll say that. I'll leave it there. Apparently in Trainwreck he's good, which I haven't seen.
Oh, what?
You know,
No,
just-
I mean...
No.
And
bro.
it must be
Says
hard
who?
for an actor, you know, to act against green screen and not be with, you know, like he's acting against animated characters, which I guess is difficult for a real actor. And, you know, imagine LeBron James like doing that. It doesn't work. He's not good in the movie. And the villain of the movie, what the hell was his name? Like Ali G?
Yeah, algorithm.
Played by
Algorithm.
Played by Don Cheadle. Yeah. And he was
Don.
like, I didn't know what he was doing in the movie. Like he was phoning it in. He was just there for a check.
The way that Don Cheadle was performing the role, it's like they wanted someone more charismatic, like Will Smith or Kevin Hart, but they were like, Will Smith's too old and Kevin Hart is too homophobic or something. Like, Don Cheadle didn't seem like he fit well for I don't know. Has Don Cheadle done many roles where you could say it's like, oh, this is like a wacky Jim Carrey performance or something? Like, what the?
No.
It was so weird, and it felt like it didn't feel natural. I don't know. Like, not to say Don
Yeah.
Cheadle's a bad actor, but like, it didn't work.
That
well
whole
for
villain
me.
character was just such a mess. Like, just on a visual level, what they try and do with him, how they express him, and how he changes throughout the movie
And
is
the
such
sidekick.
a mess. Like, but by the time he becomes this weird, like, uncanny valley CGI super mega Don Cheadle,
That was really bad.
like, and what was up with that? Like, the movie ended, and then it's like, hang on, actually, we need 30 more minutes of like more like pointless, nauseating action. You can like, barely tell what's going on.
Yeah. The end of this film is a disaster. Like the last half hour, I fucking hate. It's just like, that's when it gets really bad. You know, like just any semblance of
next
story
level.
just goes away.
I want to address an argument that I've kind of been seeing some people make, where they're essentially saying, well, the first Space Jam was also bad, and you're just being like a nostalgia person or whatever. Like,
No.
the
Well,
problem
sure.
is the first Space Jam was bad and memorable, right? Like, I'm not gonna pretend like the first Space Jam was a masterpiece, but they actually put a shit ton of effort into getting the right soundtrack, right? That was a massive success for good reason, right? The combination of something like, oh, we're going to take Michael Jordan, an NBA player, at like the high point of his, like at the end of his career when he's like transitioning, like this is like a send off for the real life person, Michael Jordan. And we're going to combine that with Looney Tunes. Like, they were showing something new, whether or not it's cheesy and dumb and stupid and blah, blah, blah. And yes, it's bad in many ways. They were showing something new. And there's a reason why they made a sequel in current years, because it connected with the culture, and it's a very visceral snapshot of 1996. It's defining the decade in a sense, right?
Yeah,
You could make the argument that
right
Space
time,
Jam,
right place.
A New Legacy, that the type of movie this is might define parts of filmmaking within this decade, but it's not defining the decade. You could say that this is a negative trend within filmmaking that many other films can be described as doing. But Space Jam 2 does not define a decade. It does not define anything. It's forgettable. It's so easily disposable. And I forgot most of it very quickly after. Because it's just references. And it's not references for humor. It's references in replace of humor, in the same way that a Friedberg and Seltzer movie, who I don't know if I'm saying their names are right.
Yeah, I know.
Epic
that,
movie, date
so
movie,
similar.
2 of the 6 writers of Scary Movie dudes, right? Like, it's just like, oh, you noticed a thing, Big Chungus. Like, where's the joke though? Where's the you can't just reference something and all of a sudden it's humor. Like, getting the joke isn't just getting what they're showing. That there's 2 different things.
I was thinking that during that entire section where the movie becomes, oh, let's build a team with the roster of famous WB heroes who'll be good at playing basketball. That whole section, you could just take out the movie, nothing would change. You'd have I can't believe it's 2 hours long.
It's crazy because they didn't even have to film those sequences. They just rotoscoped over top of it, basically, with new characters.
Exactly.
So they saved some money. And if we're going to talk about the animation in the trailer looked bad already. I'm just going to say it. It looked bad. But one thing that I tried my best
which
not to
part of the
criticize
animation?
until the actual movie was out was the lip syncing animation, because the way that studios edit together trailers, they take audio from anywhere. So it could just be because the audio is not from the part in the movie and sort of thing. They do that with live action movies too. But then I watched the movie and it's just as bad. I don't know why the lip syncing is so off. I don't like what happened between 1996 and now. Why can I see like all of the keyframes in the animation? It looks so fucking cheap. It's so bad. And I feel bad about it because animation. Like animators deserve to be treated better. Maybe it was poor direction. Studio isn't treating the animators well. There was a post from somebody on Facebook that got posted on our subreddit. Who knows if this is true, but I mean, given current climate, it probably is. But some guy being like, yeah, I worked on this movie and I was really upset because I wanted to show my kids that I was a part of this big thing and my name wasn't in the credits and they never credited me. Like, that happens all the time.
Wow.
Right? So I feel bad for animators, but at the same time, the animation looked kind of shit. Sorry.
It didn't look right. There was something off about the timing or the weight of the characters. It felt like rushed, like it needed more work, needed more time.
Do you mean
like
more
Flash
the
animation.
2D animation?
I think
or
the
3D
2D animation looked worse in terms of like the keyframes. That's exactly what I was talking about specifically. But then the character design of the 3D was the worst. Like the movement looked fine in the 3D animation.
Yeah, that's what I had
But
an
the
issue
character
with.
design looked horrendous, uncanny valley, disgusting, weird.
And that was cynical too. It's this whole thing of from switching from 2D to 3D.
For no reason.
Along with the line,
Modernized.
it's time for an upgrade.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it's
Daffy
time
Duck
for an
says,
upgrade, yeah.
I
It's
look
like,
expensive. It's like,
Yeah.
I guess.
It just reminds me of all those like 2D animated movies they get into 3D, or like the SpongeBob movie where it becomes 3D animated at the end. And I guess kids think it's fine, but
Wouldn't it
I
be-
just prefer them staying 2D.
Okay, if I were a writer,
it's distracting.
if I were a writer on Space Jam or something, and we wanted to make it 3D, maybe you could like reincorporate. Remember those like those old Looney Tunes cartoons where there was the animator was a character basically, and you saw the pencil like erase Daffy Duck, and that was like a play on 2D. You could have if you wanted to like have a transition into 3D, why not bring that back and just like. Then you have like an animator in a 3D environment doing that same joke or something. Like that could be a reference and a new way to freshen it up at the same time. I don't know. You could like play on the idea that they're in 3D animation and have it actually make sense and serve some sort of a purpose, and maybe have some sort of like existential question attached to it. But they didn't do anything with it. It was just there because they wanted it there, and that's it. Like they didn't do anything with it. Why 3D? They could have done the exact same shit in 2D.
In that, they're not interested in making jokes. They make references. That's it.
And also, why did
he
LeBron turn
LeBron
into a
James
cartoon?
fell out of the sky?
Remember Michael Jordan
Yeah, that
was
didn't
live
make any
action in
sense
the
too.
cartoon world?
Well, there they teleport him into the Toon World. Here, he went into the server and fell through a bunch of planets and happened to land in Looney Tunes land for some reason.
Yeah, but why would he?
When he lands there and he falls and there's a Nike check mark, like that was it was so cynical that it actually made me laugh. Like I actually thought that was the funniest part of the movie when he falls and there's a Nike check mark, because this whole movie's about selling you shit. And it's on HBO Max, so they have to include every single property they have on HBO Max to remind you that hey, go check out Casablanca, go check out this movie, go check out Clockwork Orange, like and it's the whole movie is that it's so cynical. And it was a huge push for LeBron James, I think, too. Like this whole movie was about how cool LeBron James was.
The coolest.
I don't know. I don't like ego projects
King
like that.
James,
He's a
they
bad
call
guy.
him.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in the movie. Like, yeah, he's a great basketball player. He's the coolest guy. Like, it's not, we talk about that other movie, Right Place, Right Time. Michael Jordan was like, he was just perfect for that. And I think he worked. He wasn't trying too hard. And LeBron James, I think, is trying to kind of outdo the legacy of Michael Jordan with this movie.
A new
and
legacy.
I don't like that.
I think that LeBron was probably a bit better of an actor than Michael Jordan.
You think so?
Yeah,
I
think he has a bit more like presence on screen. There's some really bad acting moments of Michael Jordan. I mean, there's bad moments of both of them, but I think overall
he's an Oscar winner. LeBron James. He won for that documentary.
No, that was wasn't that Kobe?
Yeah, it was Kobe.
Yeah.
My apologies.
No problem.
Another basketball player.
Yeah, right.
He probably would have been better for this.
Yeah, well, actually not, because he's dead. that might have thrown a wrench in.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's
everybody.
that. But I would have rather seen Kobe.
Yeah. Yeah, in a perfect world with no pandemic and a lot of things. But anyway, I was fully expecting this movie to be just one giant advertisement for other Warner Brothers properties, and somehow it was worse than I expected, because I expected there to be like maybe a moment of charm or a moment of like humor or a joke, but like even the jokes that aren't necessarily referencing Warner Brothers properties, they're just Big Bang Theory level writing. Like just in the middle of the Matrix scene, which is already just referencing Matrix, it's like the granny's there. It's like, haha, granny, because she's not supposed to know kung fu, whatever. Like, haha, that's a joke. And then the line that they write for the reveal is, can't the lady check her Twitter? And then immediately in my mind, I'm just thinking, that's Big Bang Theory. That's just you just said Twitter, and that's the joke, because you said Twitter, and people go, ha, he said Twitter. Like, why? That's not a joke. That's just a thing that exists that happens to be technological. That's not what a joke is.
It's funny we were talking about
Fucking
Shrek a few
boomers.
episodes ago, because like that exact Matrix joke was in the first Shrek, and we're like,
oh yeah,
it's like, yeah, it's funny how old that is now, but it's like a new movie that just came out, and they're still doing that.
It's the the same shit. It has the same Matrix joke with Granny and Speedy Gonzalez or whatever, who they got rid of because people thought he was racist, but then they brought him back apparently because he's like he's like the mouse or whatever. He's like the Spanish mouse.
Yeah, it turns out Spanish people.
But what the hell was the point of that shit? He's like jumping on the bullet. Like it's like we've seen this joke 1,000 times. It's been done 1,000,000 times, and they're still doing it.
But even the stuff you like expect and want to see from the premise, you don't even really get, at least in a way that I'd be happy with. Like,
in any way,
this movie is basically the bones of the '90s one, like remade with a bunch of like bullshit added to it. Because like
it's synthol.
Even for that last like basketball showdown in that first movie, it's like it's so simple. It's all it needs to be. You get all the toon characters, you get all the gags of them being stupid cartoon characters playing basketball, and that's what you want. It's simple. It's short, condensed. The villains are like cartoons. Take it now to this version, and like, what is going on visually with like the bad guys are these like CG superheroes that will have like different powers. The toons like
it's just a mess.
What is their purpose in this?
They're basketball
it's just
players
a total
too.
mess.
Yeah, they got real basketball players for this movie, and they play on the bad guy team, but they put a bunch of CGI on top of them. They got someone from the WNBA too. So it's like there's a woman snake kind of CGI creature playing basketball. It's like, what the fuck is this? This is terrible. I don't even know what's going on.
When they added real basketball players other than Michael in the first film, they had some sort of plot and comedic purpose to it, and it was kind of amusing. They had their powers. The Monstar little alien thing stole their ability to play basketball, and it's pretty funny having these professional basketball players pretend not to be able to play basketball, like, I can't hold anything anymore, and then at the end of the movie they get their powers back. And there's scenes in between. There's like a montage of like one of them going to therapy, like during this awesome soundtrack again, Basketball Jones, like so memorable. Like I know exactly what song's playing in that that scene. Anyway, they all they do for this film is they just say, these players, and then they turn them into CG monsters. But it's like, we never got like even a moment with those original players. We didn't get anything. You just kind of acknowledged that they existed.
No, we didn't get anything.
And that's it. And that's everything in the movie is just acknowledging that other things exist in real life. And so if the whole movie is just acknowledging that other things exist that are better than the movie, why would I watch the movie? I can just do other things that you're acknowledging exists. Like, what's the point of the movie? It's entirely purposeless. Well, they try to replicate certain characters even from the first film. Like they had the, Wayne Knight's character, Bill Murray's character. They basically had to stand in for that, for LeBron James's friend or whoever that was, who was like trying to get into the server system, and he was like, Siri, let me in or whatever, and that was supposed to be funny, but like, it wasn't really memorable. Like, Bill Murray worked really well for Space Jam. Bill Murray is like one of the funniest parts.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Melman.
Just, you can't... It's so disposable, is what it is. And regardless of whether or not we want to call Space Jam 1 a bad movie, it is not disposable. You can't get rid of it.
It's also appropriate for its audience. Like,
who's this
I'm
for?
just picturing, like, kids sit here watching, like, an Austin Powers reference. Yeah, like, who is it for? Us, I guess, but we hate it.
My parents are actually visiting in town for the first time in a year and a half or whatever because of COVID, but they're fully vaccinated. And because I had to watch this movie for the podcast in time, they were forced to watch it as well. Half of it.
What did
anyway.
they think?
I mean, they didn't think it was good or anything. Both of them individually laughed once, like chuckled once at certain moments. I think my mom might have chuckled at the Notorious P.I.G. moment, but I don't remember. Anyway, they brought up a really good point at the very end of the film when everybody's in the digital world, and then you have this like ending sequence where like everybody's essentially getting like Thanos back into reality, and like their like their bodies like falling apart and like going into the sky. And my mom said like, this would be terrifying for children. And I was like, you know what, you're right, because a child isn't going to have the context of this is a digital world and like the understanding that like they still exist in reality because like they just got sucked through a machine or whatever. Like a child isn't going to have that knowledge at that moment. Like, they're not going to be able to put that into context. All they're going to see is just a crowd full of people, each individual group getting disintegrated into the air. And I'm just like, holy shit, like that would probably show up on my childhood trauma thing or something. Like, I don't know who this movie is for. I don't think there's a single moment that's like really entertaining for children, is there? I don't fucking know what's going on. There was that. Oh,
it's for no one.
So obnoxious. I hate
Unless
it.
like it turns like into Fortnite at the end. Yeah, it's just like a mess of colors and just like Batman's there and the Iron Giant fist bumps King Kong.
I don't think it's for anybody though. Like you say man children, you say ADHD. I don't think this is for fucking anybody. What's the rating on IMDb right now? I don't think anybody likes it.
It's low. It's
like,
low.
how do you release a movie, like a
4.3.
major film from Warner Brothers? Oh, it's 4.3 out of 10 now? It was like 3.6 earlier. Maybe it's finding the right market.
It had
like, what happened?
$150 million budget, which is crazy.
Really? You say
doesn't
I'm
look
not
like
surprised.
And for what, you know? Because there's nothing in the movie. It's two actors and a bunch of CGI in a green screen room. Like, what did they pay for? I guess no. LeBron James is probably a producer on it.
I mean,
where did
animation's
the money go?
expensive, and I don't know.
Well, they don't pay the animators, so.
But it's directed by someone with like no animation background whatsoever. They
Isn't
did,
that
like,
funny?
Girls Trip and Undercover Brother and random shit.
Maybe they were thinking like, oh yeah, let's replicate the success of the original Space Jam because they got Joe Pitka or whoever, right? He didn't have experience with animation, did he? Maybe they were thinking that would just work. Like they had the right formula. They were going to try and replicate it in that sense. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
What a gigantic piece of garbage. Also, sorry, but I'm going to bring this up. Fucking Lola Bunny, she looks trash, okay? And I want to make absolutely clear because people exaggerate the other sides of the argument. So if somebody says, why does Lola Bunny look so ugly? That other people immediately think like, oh, what? So you want her to be sexualized? You can still have a character not sexualized and also not turn them into something like incredibly ugly. What? Like, I'm not even straight, okay? I think that she's really fucking ugly as an animation concept, as a character design. There are plenty of other animations. Like, you can say the characters in the Nut Shack look ugly. They're ugly designed characters. They're badly designed characters. Yeah. That's not saying, oh, I want them to be fuckable. That's a commentary on just the aesthetics of the character design. Nothing to do with her tits, okay? Her face looks ugly. Why did they make her face ugly? Why did they do that? I don't know.
Yeah, you've mentioned Lola Bunny's tits before.
Yeah.
She looks bad in the movie. She doesn't even need to be in it, really.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Bad. She's
just a reference to the original, yeah.
The supposed criticism of the original is like, okay, so you introduce this female character, and clearly in the original, it's just like, oh, she's just the love interest of Bugs Bunny. She's just a hot piece of ass or whatever, right? Like, that is degrading to women. I can agree. I can understand the criticism there, okay? No disagreement on whether or not that's problematic or whatever you want to call it. However, she doesn't serve a purpose in this new film. Like, at least she had a purpose, whether or not the purpose was problematic in the first film. Now she has no purpose. Now she has nothing. You'd think that if you were a writer creating Space Jam 2 and being like, okay, well, what can we do critically about the first film? Lola Bunny only served the purpose as just being the Bugs's romantic interest for no reason. And she just walked around being like, oh, everybody thinks she's hot sort of thing, right? Give her a new purpose in the other movie. Give her a new purpose in Space Jam 2. Why is she here? Give her, like,
She's
I don't
Wonder
even
Woman
care.
now,
Like,
though, guys.
give her something to do other than just existing.
No,
right?
she's just Wonder Woman.
Why doesn't she have, like, goals or
Exactly.
desires then? Like, if you're trying to combat sexism, give her a character. Give her something to strive for, like a motivation. What are you doing? What a trash character. Her face looks stupid.
Yeah. And all the tunes in this, they didn't really do anything. They were such an afterthought in the movie for me. Like Bugs Bunny, he has a big sacrifice toward the end of the movie where he has to make a certain jump, but it glitches out. But then it like doesn't do anything. Like he glitches himself out, he does the thing, and then you think he's gonna die, but he doesn't.
So noble.
And then like the next scene, he just shows up again. And it's like, "What's up, Doc?"
So,
And,
yeah,
like,
the noble
I was
sacrifice
trying to come up with something clever, like because his kid wants to make video games or whatever, like in the movie LeBron James' kid. I thought like, okay, so he's gonna go to like the gaming camp, summer camp, and he's gonna like redesign Bugs Bunny or something, bring him back, something that makes sense. But it like Bugs Bunny just shows up, like it doesn't, like no one had any purpose. Bugs Bunny sacrificed himself, but then he just comes back the next scene. So it's like, what's this movie trying to do? What's the story?
E3 even being in it was funny because like E3's like died a death like the last year.
Yeah.
So that
And
being
it was
part of the story
E3
is hilarious.
summer camp. Yeah, like what was that?
Yeah, it's some just made up
Is
bullshit.
that a thing?
I was like just there in bemusement. Like, I'd actually forgotten about the Nike tick bit, but that is egregious. It's almost like them just putting a middle finger up at the screen, like fuck you, you're already in. We've already got your money. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
what else can we even do at this point?
I think Nike paid for the whole movie, and
Yeah,
I don't know, like Warner Brothers just made it because it was no expense at them, you know?
Yeah.
Like just put LeBron James in it, Nike will pay for it, throw in a bunch of references, and people will eat it up because they're stupid. And I guess,
yeah.
I mean, are people stupid? Do people like this?
No.
I guess not.
No one likes it.
No one likes it. Everyone just thinks it's a joke.
I don't think so.
And
Yeah.
the only reason it's relevant and being talked about is because of like the Chungus frame that's been shared on Twitter, or like just awful shit from the film that's being made fun of.
Everything that I
Yeah.
see other people saying about the movie is essentially just social media post, they put this in the movie, which is kind of what they
Yeah.
want in a way, because you're promoting the
it's
film
almost a
by
strategy.
It's
by
marketing.
saying, hey, they
Right.
put Rick and Morty in it. Whether or not you're saying,
Mhm.
hey, they put it in it and this is cringe, or hey, they put it in it, I like this, you're kind of promoting the movie for them, right? And I guess we do that too. We're film
Well, yeah.
reviewer people. But I think that that
Exactly.
the movie fails in much worse ways than just which properties are in it and how many. I think that it's an absolute disaster, regardless of whether or not it's a gigantic ad for other properties of Warner Brothers, because the Lego movie is a good movie and it can still be an ad for Lego and Warner Brothers. Like, just because something is an ad for something else, and whether how gratuitous it is or not, you know, the degree to which it is doesn't really influence whether or not it's a good film. It's just that it was a substitute for any writing or jokes or
Yeah.
character or
It's all
story.
about that balance.
There was nothing there. And what's really embarrassing about it is like when you see the scenes, like when LeBron enters the Toon World and they have there's like a train chase really quickly. They're doing all of this action nonsense and it's going by super, super quickly. Blam, bam, blam, blam. Just imagining how they wrote that. The people that created this obviously think they're doing something much more than they actually are. Like they think that there's something there, or at least that's the impression that I get. Because they're actually,
How else could
writing
you
all
make
these
it?
different scenarios and set pieces, even if they only last for like 2 seconds each or whatever. Like they put effort into being like, oh, let's have him do this, and let's have him do this, and let's have him do this. And it's just a room of writers or whatever the scenario was to create that end product. But none of it works. They're just incredibly
doesn't work.
untalented writers, or I don't know how else to justify how the movie turned out this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no story or anything, and the conversation is about the references because there is nothing else to talk about. Genuinely, there is nothing. There is absolutely nothing.
It's references. It's LeBron James is cool, and Looney Tunes are in it for a little bit.
It's like if you
That's
took
basically the whole movie.
just some corporate advertiser people that have never made a single good commercial in their life and got them to write a full-length film, you know? And it's not just because it's a big ad, but like the quality of the writing. Like if you turn on ads on like television or YouTube or anything, like when's the last time you've seen like a good ad, right? That's what Space Jam's like. It's like if you sat through an entire commercial that was 2 hours long, just the quality of what it was is reflective of that. It's so bad.
It is bad.
Terrible.
It's shameful. Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
for
shameful is
shame.
the word for it.
The shameful display.
Yeah, straight up for shame. Fuck this movie.
Mhm. Fuck them. Fuck that shit. All right, I think we're done.
Oh,
This is bad.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, geez. What a pandering piece of shit.
Yeah, pandering to who even?
Yeah.
Right. To the dumb writers.
To themselves.
like
They thought
this.
they wrote something funny, clearly.
Yeah. I kind of had the same experience with you, Adam, where my dad kind of came in halfway and watched it with me.
Mhm.
And yeah, he hated it too. He's like, it's just a bunch of colors and shit. It's just like
It's a big headache.
it's really cynical. Yeah, it's really bad. Like if this is where movies are going, I never want to see a movie again. This is fucking terrible.
Yeah, man.
And it feels like this is where movies are going. Like, people don't want anything controversial or offensive or they want fluff like this. It's just nothing. It's just like a bunch of references to things,
rapist characters
dumb jokes
on the basketball field. Not controversial.
Well, the Clockwork Orange guys, yeah, they're rapists too, but you're not supposed to. They're movie characters, I guess. You're not supposed to think about that. You're just supposed to laugh.
The It clown was so distracting.
No, yeah, because I was thinking about that when
why is he cheering
went to
that
see my first movie.
Why does he give a shit about basketball?
There was like an advert for Jaws when I went to see a movie when I was a kid, and that freaked me out so much. And that wasn't even like part of the movie. So imagine like a kid who's like freaked out of the It clown, and they go,
they show him so much.
Jam, the fun kids movie. And it's like, oh my god, it's that killer clown that's gonna fucking eat me and drag me down a drain.
You know how in like Too Many Cooks, the like creepy guy with the beard is like hanging out in the background of all those frames, like ready to kill you? It's like that could be a child's experience watching this. Because like the clown has a creepy face. He's just ominously hanging out in the court.
Yeah.
Why is he there? This isn't for kids. What'd you do?
Yeah.
If you chemically engineered the concept of a headache and transformed it into a film, that would be Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Yeah. I wasn't even looking at the subject of the frame. I was usually looking in the background during the basketball scene just to see like what was back there. But that's so distracting. Like, who thought that was a good idea? Like, I'm looking in the background at fucking blurry images instead of focusing on what's happening in the story because it's so boring.
And talking about the subjects in the frame, holy shit, like the composition and just, it's like mostly an animated movie. It's so flat, it's so bland. There's like nothing creative about the way it's assembled. It doesn't use the fact it's animated for any good ideas. Like even the dumb, stupid shit from the 90s one, the memorable like stretching and just the continuous idea of like, it's in a cartoon world, so you're going to see the cartoony dumb shit you'd expect from
sure.
You don't even get that kind of stuff. It's just, I just don't get what it's going for at all.
And the aliens from the first one made a cameo in here for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
They could have been more part of the plot, but they weren't. Like they're just in there for a reference and then they go away.
Yeah, of course.
And it's useless.
Everything's useless.
Yeah, Danny DeVito, he was like a fun animated villain that made sense
True.
in the first movie. Now it's Don
In the
Cheadle.
first
like
movie?
Oh my
live
god.
action. Yeah. Yeah, he was like a really small character. Like it was so uninteresting. It doesn't matter, but you have, Danny DeVito in there. It's memorable.
We didn't even really talk about the stupid fucking sidekick of Don Cheadle, too. That, like, Wall-E voice, like, stupid robot thing.
Yeah.
It was like, why is that in there? Like, why?
From
That's
Windows,
on the
that
checklist.
thing.
I get it. You want to do something fucking cute? Like, is that one for the babies?
They've already got loads of cute characters. That's the weird thing. They've already got all of the WB cartoons.
Yeah.
You got the Looney
got
Tunes.
Bugs Bunny.
Why do you need that?
Yeah, what?
What's the sidekick for? Served zero purpose of just like, oh, you got to have something go bleep bloop.
Yeah, that was their attempt at a new thing.
Yeah.
Like the new plush.
You gotta have a character that only says goo goo gaga, basically.
Yeah, they had to design nothing new for this movie. Like it's all pre-existing things. They didn't have to animate any new characters. It's just.
Oh, what about the time traveling robot guy that's in like one scene?
What?
I don't remember that.
It's a very forgettable movie. You're gonna have to refresh it.
Yeah, there's like randomly this like robot time. He like pauses time and just fucks with everyone.
Oh yeah, the fucking chromium
it's
or
like
whatever
a weird
it was.
X-Men thing.
I don't know what that. I think that was just a new Monstar. I mean, sorry, Goon Squad is what they call them now. I think that was just one of the Goon Squad members. There was one that was like fire and water at the same time because that's like cool.
Yeah, there
apparently,
was the snake person.
Well, why were they superheroes? Why?
I don't know because superheroes are
WB
hot
did
right
this
now.
in the last Scooby Doo movie as well. They got to be up there for just
They're
one
just
of the
X-Men's.
worst like studios right now. If they didn't have Nolan or DC, what the hell would they be doing?
Yeah.
I know.
Kombat, Godzilla versus Kong.
You know what pissed me off that nobody else cared about because I guess I'm autistic or something is like so the time travel chromium dude presses the button on his wrist or whatever and he's like, oh, okay. So for the next minute, I'm going to be able to go super fast. I'm pausing time and I'm scoring goals or whatever he was doing. And that was a disadvantage to the other characters. And then what does Granny do to kill him? She just does she presses the same button on his wrist. It goes for like 90 years. But for some reason, he's frozen in time now and aging. But it's like, he should be able to move around freely and score goals. Well, like, him aging, like you did the same thing, but now there's different consequences to it. That doesn't make any sense. That pissed me off. And then, yeah, nobody,
No,
of
but
course,
Matrix
nobody else
reference.
cares because it's stupid and time travel never works
No.
unless it's
No.
Primer or 12 Monkeys.
I think everything about the movie makes no sense and is bad. Every level of it. Like
What about
even
the red
just
and
that,
blue
like the logic.
neon thing? Just the look of it, I can't
Yeah,
It
stand
looks
this
odd. The whole
movie.
thing looks like shit.
It does
Mhm.
look like shit. It's all a green screen room. Like all of Don Cheadle's stuff was just in a green screen room. All of it. And then once he becomes the CGI Uncanny Valley thing, it's just his voice acting. Like he was such a non-presence in the
Why
movie.
did they
I
need
felt
to
like,
do
I
that?
felt like he was so just like he showed up for a check and then left. Like good for him, but that's
I really
exactly
wasn't
what it
expecting
felt like.
Uncanny Valley problems from a Space Jam movie.
I mean, we
No,
got that in
I
the
wasn't
first one
either.
with fucking inflated.
Oh yeah,
White Knight.
you're right.
We're in the
you're
year 2021. The CGI should be much better.
Everything seems to be made as cheaply as possible somehow, and they spent like 150 million on it anyway.
That must just be a lie. I don't even believe that. 150 million. I don't believe that.
Money
must
laundering,
be
maybe.
They're going to LeBron James.
Money
yeah,
laundering.
maybe.
That's it. Yeah,
100
that's what I
million.
believe.
Money laundering.
Yeah, that's just a
LeBron
theory,
James took all the money.
a film theory.
Yeah. If you're a fan of LeBron James, you might like the movie.
They didn't have to pay anyone for the rights.
All right, 1 out of 10. What else do we got? Fuck this shit. I'm so done with this. Let's talk
Yeah,
about
1 out of 10.
Trainspotting.
Yeah,
Fuck that.
yeah. One
No,
out
I
of
hate
like
10.
it.
shitting on this movie. I like shitting on this movie because I don't know. I'm not going to get a chance to shit on it again.
Okay,
It was such
yeah,
a
anything
fucking
else you
horrible
wanna add?
experience.
Go for it. Take the floor.
Out of 5, I'll just do my rating. Out of 5, I'll do 1 out of 5. It's a fucking piece of crap.
Really, you're going 1 out of 5. I'm doing a half star out of 5. Whatever the lowest thing. To be honest, I don't actually count this as a movie. Like this marks a point for me where it's like
Good call.
It's like a new timeline where it's like a new category we need for like movies like this.
Yeah, this is-
like
A new legacy.
This is like one of the Roger Ebert infamous 0 stars or something. It's like, this isn't a movie. What the fuck is this shit?
Because I just remember being so disappointed by Ready Player One and just like the way it seemed like some of these movies were going. And like just to flash forward to now and see this, it's like so depressing to me. Fuck this
Yeah.
film. Half star.
And that's I bet we're going to see more films like this in the future because I think it
Maybe.
did pretty well.
You never know, because if this
yeah.
doesn't make that much money, you know, I'm sure HBO has the numbers
Yeah,
of like who
hopefully.
signed up for HBO Max to watch this, and then we have the theater numbers. So I don't know. We'll see if it was a success for them or not. Maybe they'll stop this bullshit. Maybe they'll decide
Yeah.
it was a bad idea. Maybe it won't be
Mhm.
profitable.
Like, yeah, I knew we were in for a wild ride when in the movie there was like, I think Sarah Silverman in her office is
Oh,
like
yeah.
an Aquaman poster, like a giant Aquaman poster on the wall. I knew we were in for a
That was
treat
Oh, of
so
course.
at that
bad.
point.
There was the Suicide Squad poster. There was everything. It was
Uh-huh.
just posters for things coming out.
A lot of Walking Dead actors as well, like
Steven
Steven
Yeun.
Yeun, who plays Glenn.
Mhm.
Yeah, Steven Yeun actually. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's the woman who plays LeBron James's wife in the movie. She's in Walking Dead.
Oh.
I don't know who she plays.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah, no, you're
That
right,
was a
yeah,
bad character too.
Yeah. Oh, terrible.
Before we were like laughing at like all the LeBron James stuff with his son, like he wanted his son to play basketball so bad, but it was like
He was a gamer.
unrealistic. Yeah, it was just so funny how he like you got to go to basketball camp. Like it was so funny.
I'm such a terrible game designer that if you do a certain move, it deletes the character.
that
And
doesn't
then
make any sense. The video
happened in
game
the plot.
stuff.
But even then, it's like, wait, we need to make the game crash so
Yeah,
we can
you need to
score?
glitch it,
Like,
but
what?
Bugs, you have to do it, and you'll die. You die in real life.
But he didn't die. He was fine. He was fine.
No, Dad, I've run the
It meant nothing.
calculations.
Yeah, that was a funny
We're
line.
fucked.
But they set that up earlier in the
I'm
movie.
not a video game character. Dad, you don't know that. I've done the calculations.
Yeah, his character got deleted. He's like, damn, my character got deleted. I'm like, how'd that happen? Like, that doesn't even make sense.
Oh,
Like,
he's
what
just
happened?
Yeah.
he's just a shit game designer, and he should play basketball instead. LeBron's right. Fuck this movie. I want to talk about Trainspotting.
Yeah.
Isn't-
Let's leave.
Okay,
I don't want
fine.
this anymore.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Bye bye, Space Jam. Fuck
Bye
off.
forever. Fuck.
Space Jam: A New Legacy. Should I lower my rating to half a star?
I think you should.
Yeah, go
Or
on.
should I just
If
go
you're
for
asking the question, you should do it.
I was actually surprised you gave it a 4.
Yeah, I'll go half a star then.
Okay.
I mean, what the fuck?
If this doesn't deserve that, then what
It's so
movie
bad.
does?
Exactly. Gotti.
Never.
It really does.
All right, you want to
I put
introduce
this and
the
Gotti at the same level.
film? Zzz.
Okay, so my recommendation was a double feature for Trainspotting and T2 Trainspotting. Spoilers, we'll be talking about these films in depth. So Trainspotting we'll start with, 1996 Danny Boyle movie, based on the novel by Irvine Welsh, written by John Hodge. Story about addicts. It's what the name, it's part of what is brilliant about the name, is it's a metaphor, because it is one of the only, well, it's just a great metaphor for something that is likened to addiction, which is what the movie is about. I have some family members who are train spotters, and it is a funny metaphor to use because it is such a sort of avid thing to be into. But
Can you explain that for me, actually? Because I've never actually looked
really?
into that in depth. Yeah, I'm not really sure what a train spotter is, even.
The concept of train spotting and train spotters.
Yeah.
Oh, it's people
Yeah.
who love trains so deeply that, here's an example, like a couple Christmases ago for like family reunion, they're so into trains that one of them gave the other a record with just the sounds of trains on them. Like an EP with
Okay.
just the sounds of
Interesting.
like trains on them. It's like, it goes like that deep, and they know like every model number. They're out there at 2 a.m. to see some really specific serial number thing that's just going to be on this one line at one time. It's like that deep, that level of commitment.
That's
they're that into it.
fascinating. But yeah, those people do exist for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's obviously the title of the movie, but it's more specifically set in the 90s in a pretty poor part of Scotland. It's just 4 characters who are battling with heroin addiction and what comes of it, and just kind of highlighting this situation they're in and the different ways people from this era dealt with addiction, and that's the main focus, and just the way it transpires throughout the 90 minutes, and just the creative energy that's behind this movie. It's always stood out as a point in my mind. The first time I saw this movie, it's like a moment. It's like, oh yeah, like this is really like a creative, just visually so inspired. Just the way that it's so visually expressive. The imagery is so expressive. There's so many great visual metaphors. So it's just so inspired. It's the perfect. I think it's Danny Boyle's magnum opus to me. It's just the perfect source material, the perfect direction, just the perfect characters and everything.
I think
love
it has
this
an
movie
excellent soundtrack too.
Oh, the soundtrack,
Like, I
of
think
course,
the soundtrack's killer. Fucking great songs.
every
Basically the
single song.
entire the entire
Because
album.
we talk
basically.
about those kind of soundtrack or the playlist type soundtracks to movies sometimes, but something about the Trainspotting one is elevated, where it's almost more associated with Trainspotting. All the songs from it are associated with Trainspotting more than the separate artist work, and it's also ingrained within the characters of the movie. They're fans of Iggy Pop within the movie, and their whole sequences are designed around like the underworld music, which is a big part of Danny Boyle's films as well. And there isn't much I dislike about the movie at all, to be honest. It's definitely one of my favorites. Where do you guys
it's pretty
kind of stand
great.
on it?
I love the movie. When I first saw it, I was with you. I thought this is fucking awesome movie, and it's very funny too. I think that's a huge part of it. It's a very funny film,
I love the tone.
and at times it could be very disturbing. The things I remember most about it are like the baby, that stuff, like the withdrawal scene. Like I think that's the highlight for me.
Love it.
Yeah.
Have always loved it. I don't think it's perfect. There's like maybe a couple issues I have with it, but it's something that obviously deserves its spot as being a classic, as being like a part of like the culture of filmmaking, and especially with the directing and what's going on conceptually in this film and how ideas are communicated.
inspired.
Exactly. It's the most memorable parts of the movie for me, like not just the withdrawal scene, like that's obviously a big one, but the overdose scene is something that immediately stuck out to me the first time I watched it, because I love the visual representation of what was happening to this character, of him sinking into the carpet past the floor, and then we get a perspective shot from inside the carpet that, obviously this is turning into something symbolic and metaphorical, because clearly the carpet didn't come with him to the hospital. The intent
like horse
is
blinders.
there, but just showing something in that way is just, I think it's really, really brilliant. And I love that very early on into the movie, we get a similar style with the toilet underwater to get the
Yes, that's my favorite
suppositories
one.
Yeah.
swimming through there. That's really early on, and it's the perfect representation of like, here's what you should expect from this movie. Maybe not at every single moment, but this is the type of movie that this is. And, you know, it just wouldn't be the same thing at all without Danny Boyle. So,
Yeah, but just that, like that moment you just mentioned, it's so expressive just in how you totally get the idea just through the visuals and the juxtaposition of him. You know, he's going into this vile toilet, the most disgusting like toilet set you've ever seen. It's like really claustrophobic and small.
yeah.
And just the concept of him getting his drug back, getting back to his addiction, and the kind of the dreamy like joy he gets from that, and then the like Brian Eno music, it's kind of positive imagery being associated with the negative thing. So then when you're flashed back and pulled back out of it into that toilet, like back into the set, it's like really hammers home like the theme of the movie and what the characters are going through.
Yeah, it's a heightened, helpful way to express characters and emotions in a way that acting never really could, you know? There's only so much we can get by just hearing dialogue and the inflection of someone's voice and the expression on their face. There's only so much we can get as human beings, but when you create something that expresses something so visual and atmospheric, especially with the combination of music, it's like, this is filmmaking. This is the magic of filmmaking.
Yeah.
This is using film to its best advantage to create something and actually share and express emotions and stories. I think this is just the best way that film can be used, really.
Yeah.
Is that type of thing.
And with the one you said earlier about when he overdoses and is sort of lowered down, almost like later in the movie where the coffin and that character does die as a result of
Tommy.
this drug. Yeah.
That was a whole part of the film I forgot about from like my first viewing. And that was like his fall is like spectacular. Like it's so fast. He goes from having everything to dying. Yeah, it's so sad.
There's a chaos to the movie that is so perfect for the subject matter. It's directed in a chaotic way. It's edited in a chaotic way. Just everything about it is chaos. But it's so controlled and so directed and just fits in with the tone of everything so well. And you mentioned the tone earlier, the comedy of it. And I've always been drawn to movies that are able to have that comedy in there, but also have the drama hit when it matters. It's one of my favorite just ways to get me in, just emotionally invested in the story. For some reason that just really works for me. And for me, it is a very good comedy up until that baby scene where it almost turns into a horror movie. And there's something a lot of Danny Boyle movies kind of do, is they have a point where they shift into almost another genre. And it goes into the whole kind of trippy sequence where he's on the bed and the baby and everything. Yeah, it's non-stop with the movie.
Yeah, they set up the baby really well. Like you see it basically right at the beginning of the movie. Yeah. And you know, the second I saw it, I'm like, oh man, that baby is not like that baby's in trouble.
Dead ass baby.
And that's, you know, it's horrifying, but in that situation with those characters, that's what should happen in the story, because you know, what they're doing is wrong. They are bad people.
What it brings out of the characters is so haunting.
I guess I'm just too much of a determinist, and I think that everybody's a victim of just existence. But you know, like drug addiction is an illness in many different ways. For sure, obviously, like that baby should have been put up for adoption or something, or taken by Child Protective Services.
Yeah, taken away.
Yeah,
but that scene does a good point of highlighting the like illness nature of it, because that is how they all deal with it. They don't.
Yeah, they immediately shoot up afterwards, right?
Yeah. That is how they deal with everything.
And it's like really sad. Like it's I feel as much for them as I do the baby. You know, like it's a sad situation to be in. It's a really.
Well, then Ian McGregor has a line like, "I'll give her a hit, but after mine, of course."
Yeah,
you know, that's what I mean
like
about them being unlikable. It's because their addiction has made them unlikable.
They have like an addiction philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're using like language like my sincere and truthful drug habit and stuff like this. It's all like very nihilistic. The main character, Ewan McGregor's character, is super nihilistic. His whole choose life thing.
Yeah,
and,
perfect.
You know, his whole character wants to escape. It's kind of what defines him. And
Yeah.
he has such an interesting... The movie kind of boils up to this dilemma he has, this choice he has. And the execution of it is so expressive of the character, like we were saying earlier. And again, without using tons of unnecessary exposition or whatnot, my favorite moment in that conclusion is just how it ends with Spud and him, where it's like complete silence. He sees him leaving the room and he just shakes his head in disapproval and just leaves. It's just such a good way to leave the characters, and that just everything makes sense. The story builds on itself so naturally. The way, like the four characters, like all having like sex scenes at the same time, and it all advances the story in like a different way, or it's like either for comedy or there's just so much going on in the movie that comes together so well, and that pace as well. It's only 90 minutes, and it doesn't need a minute more.
It
or
flies
less.
by.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's one of the best examples I can think of a movie that it feels like it must be longer than it is because so much happens within a short time.
Yeah.
As in, like, you don't feel like, oh, was too long, but it's like you think like, surely this must have been a 2-hour film based on how much content was in it. But then it turns out it was only 90 minutes because it's just the entire thing is just one gigantic like time lapse almost, like things. That's part of why Tommy's downfall seems so sudden, is because it's over a long period of time, and they don't waste time with anything. Like even in the opening, even in the opening scene when he's first trying to get off of heroin, you have that nice scene where he's like, oh, 3 cans of tomato soup, mushroom soup for cold, blah 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 blah. He locks himself in his room or his apartment or whatever, hammers the nails into it, and then instead of getting like a drawn out literal representation of him taking them off, we just kind of see him on the phone outside. The boards are broken. Obviously he was the one that did it, right? We don't need more information than that, and it travels much faster in that way, and it's better to have some things that are interpretable in that way. I mean, it's obvious what happened, but
it's got a great pace. There's a lot of scenes in here that are like really short. I think they're good. It's with that pacing. Like I remember there's a scene where he's like, I think he's at a doctor's office and they give him an injection or they take his blood and he goes, ouch. Yeah, that's the scene.
It's
really
like funny.
20 seconds long. It is funny because he's a heroin addict. He's getting an injection or something.
Yeah, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And that was it. That was the scene. But just there, you got like enough information to come up with that scene had a point, and then it moves on to the next thing, and it's like that brisk pacing where the movie stays ahead of you, I think, because of that brisk pacing. You're never really figuring out where it's going. You're just enjoying the ride. You're really just enjoying these characters that are really funny. They're not likable entirely, but I think they are very funny. I think Ian McGregor's character, I think he's very like capable, smart. Like I think he's a good protagonist. He's definitely drawn back, because of his addiction, but him taking the money, he does like a lot of smart things throughout the movie.
He does. He's what's weird is like he's also kind of an asshole in ways that I can't blame the drug for. Like when he shoots the dog with a BB gun, like that scene, it makes it funnier for sure.
Yeah, that is funny though.
Somehow the character is still likable despite a scene like that.
What about him stealing the porno too? That's the other really bad thing.
Yeah, just like
it's pretty fucked.
People are kind of assholes.
I think that's part of the point of that character, though, isn't it? Is that he doesn't change at the end. So him just walking into the camera with him smiling, it's like there's a sadness, there's a darkness to it, and again, just the story choices that they decided to take with the 5 like main kind of characters in relation to the addiction side. Like Renton is the addict who manages to recover it, so it's really good him being the protagonist. And then you got like Sick Boy, who is fun to put with Renton because it's like a part of the movie where he doesn't struggle with the addiction as much, so he'll like just stop doing heroin just to annoy Renton. Yeah. So getting that perspective's interesting. And then on top of that, you have like Begbie, who's kind of the villainous, just control character who he's not interested in heroin. He's someone who completely rejects the idea in that hilarious line where he's like, dangerous fucking chemicals, and he like takes a shot. He's like, I've never fucking touched anything like that.
He's the most like toxic and violent character despite not being the heroin addict.
Yeah,
the socially acceptable addict.
Spud is essential for the sort of emotive
best character,
vulnerable side. He is the best character.
He is the best character.
He's the most vulnerable. It's part of the story of the movie where it's like he'll never hurt a fly. Renton even leaves him some money because he knows he is just a victim. Like you were saying earlier, Adam, like, I get that vibe from this movie that it is, they are kind of a victim of circumstance over anything.
Yeah. Spud is awesome. He's very innocent.
Yeah.
That's what makes him.
Super expressive performance when he's in that room where he's doing the interview right after he took coke. One of my favorite scenes.
He took speed. That was what he took in the movie.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but you just like describing the scene. It made me laugh because it brought me back to those memories.
Yeah, it's just the head motion over to that painting on the wall and the dialogue. We haven't even mentioned. I love the dialogue in this movie. It's so quick and witty and clearly a lot from the book.
Yeah.
Have you ever like read anything from the book? It's
never.
tough to read, man.
No.
Just the dialect. I assume you need subs to understand what they're saying a lot of the time.
I actually watched it without subtitles. It's not that bad.
Oh,
Maybe
cool.
a couple lines I kind of missed out, but for the most part, I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the books are a bit tougher in terms of that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
that dialogue though, it's so expressive. Yeah.
It's like reading Clockwork Orange where they have their own language.
Pretty much.
Okay.
The guy who played Spud was in Naked.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He played
Yeah, he's a good character actor.
Archie. And I swore he was in 28 Days Later, but I guess I'm wrong. I'm looking through the IMDb right now. I thought he played... I'm getting him confused with another guy. There was like one of the soldiers that like hid in the cupboard or something. Maybe he just looked similar to me. Whatever. I'm not going to worry about it.
Tiny Bull loves like shit scenes, clearly.
I'm glad.
Poopy.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention the shit scene. The scene
Oh yeah,
because
oh my god! Now there's Slumdog also. Shit, literally.
Oh yeah. That's true.
What else?
It's gross. He likes gross out. I think
Well,
that's
that
Alex,
is a big
name
part
more.
of the movie.
We're about
those
to
are the
like
main two
solve
that
the
made me
mystery.
thinking of that scene from Slumdog. Is there any shit scene in a? No, a drop of blood falls in an eye in one of them. That's not shit.
That would have been weird.
Downing Ball ones. If a drop of shit falls in his eye,
Yeah, the
that
bird
would
poop.
reaffirm it.
The same like perspective camera angle following the poop down to his eye.
There's no scene in like Steve Jobs.
Oh yeah, that shit scene from Steve Jobs.
There was a
Steve Jobs falls in shit.
I don't know.
Yeah, don't you remember Seth Rogen came out? He just started shitting all over the place.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. What a crazy director. His name should be as popular as someone like, I don't know, Quentin Tarantino or something, you know? He's not a household name, and I think he should be.
No.
I think he might be in
He's
the
a
UK.
British director, maybe.
He's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
huge here. Like for the Olympic ceremony that was here, he like directed that.
Cool.
And, like, with James Bond and the Queen and stuff. And actually, you could.
Oh.
I really get the vibe from this movie that he does have like a theater background, and it's just the way the sets are designed and everything. They're so creative. A really good creative use of lots of small spaces, small cramped places. Lots of like interesting lights and whatnot used for contrast, and just every scene, like even the clothing is always thoughtful in terms of how the image is put together with the colors, just the angles of everything is so well shot in that way.
Yeah. So much going on.
There's a lot going on in the movie. I wouldn't even say it's just about heroin addiction. Like there's a point where they get off heroin and it becomes more of a crime film about, them bringing a package to the dealer and getting the money.
I like that they do address that in kind of like Requiem for a Dream, although not nearly as explicitly as that movie. They do kind of address the whole other people are addicts in their own way thing, because Begbie, not just alcohol, but like violence, especially, like that's his fix, not even alcohol. And then they have the line where it's like he stole the Valium from his mother, who is in her own domestic and socially acceptable way also a drug addict. There's lots of great dialogue in this movie. I understand some people get a little turned off by voiceover narration. It doesn't really bother me in this film, particularly because, it's from a book. You have to communicate these thoughts somehow, right? The points where voiceover narration bothers me the most is when it's dialogue that had no reason to be voiceover narration, where we didn't get any more context or information, and like this, if it could have just been said to another character, but that's not the case for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really noticed in watching T2 how the lack of the laser focus on Renton and that narration actually kind of hurts the identity of the movie and what it's going for and that whole tone.
Mm-hmm.
I think it helps with the pacing a lot. He kind of guides you
massively.
through the story.
Yeah,
Like,
true.
I feel it's
That
essential
intro.
for this film. In the way Goodfellas, it's essential too. It
Yeah,
reminds me
yeah,
of
I
Goodfellas
agree.
in terms of just the pacing, and that
Mhm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love this film. Yeah. I don't know what else to say aside from, it's pretty much a masterpiece. I'm not going to shit on it at all. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So,
There's like one part that kind of annoys me, and you call it nitpicky, that's fine. But whenever the poop scene happens, which is really funny and I like, all I'm thinking throughout the entire time is like, does nobody have a nose? Like, all these characters should be smelling what's happening. Like, he's got it in the room with them. Like, there would be a stank. If it's liquid shit, if it's diarrhea, like, that shit
Yeah, it would
smells.
smell.
You'd smell that way before
Yeah.
that reveal. So that was that. I don't know. I don't get the full effect of what the scene is intending because part of my brain is like, that doesn't make sense, but I can't
sure.
change
He
that.
didn't need to bring his sheets in there with him.
That's
He
a
could've
little
just
weird.
left them.
Where it just
Mhm.
there are parts of this movie
He
that
didn't need
are
to bring
a
them in
little
the kitchen,
silly
but I also, it's Spud.
in
right?
general.
It's Spud, so he's dumb. Yeah.
The bar fight's pretty goofy.
Yeah, tons
Yeah.
about this movie is goofy. I think for the most part it succeeds.
But that dream-like kind of cartooniness does help with that kind of stuff because it is the main character. He's not, he's not entirely with it. So a lot of it
Mhm.
feels
Yeah.
like it is dreamy, and it's like, is this even real? In some of these scenes, like it does seem like cartoonified at points with those like really contrasting colors and everything. It's not
Mhm.
like I would never describe it as realistic necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
even
I
though
always
it
felt
does
like I was
handle the
in
subject matter very well.
Renton's perspective. Like it was always
Yeah.
Renton's perspective.
That's
and
a
his
good
way
way
of
to
seeing
look
the
at it.
world is usually
Yeah,
gross.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, because a lot of his dialogue, being like this nihilistic, his attitudes of the world informed by his life as an addict and everything.
Mm.
Well, even just like the worst toilet in Scotland, that part, like
Yeah,
it's kind of over the top. It's the worst toilet.
No, of
like
course.
you find literally, it's the most disgusting fucking
Yeah.
toilet you can imagine,
just
and he just
so
happens
over
to
the
be in
top.
it, But it's the story, I don't mind that.
yeah, it works with the tone. It all feels consistent.
Yeah, I think
to me.
so. Yeah, I was never taken out of it.
I would like to mention a couple more things that I have in my notes. The line, everyone's changing, even men and women are changing. 50,000 years from now, there will be no women, just wankers. It's pretty ahead of its time in a way.
Yeah.
Trans
'cause
issues are becoming more of a center stage thing in this year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was one of the things. I haven't seen this movie in a few years. I was remembering that, and it's like a bit of a thing at the moment. Like all the older movies who have handled these kind of subject matters with, not as elegantly. But yeah, because it is at the expense of Begbie's character, as opposed to like the main character just being just a dick, basically.
Yeah.
It just makes more sense. Just this framing of it doesn't seem like hateful or whatever.
I love the core of what the movie is communicating in terms of like the struggles of especially the main character are very realistic when it's commenting, I guess, on like drug addiction and culture, because one of the hardest things to break away from if you're an addict who, let's say you do drugs and you have a social circle that does drugs, what makes it really hard for a lot of people is that if they're the one quitting and their social circle isn't, I mean, like that that really hinders someone's attempt. And that's kind of shown with not just when they all like we all made an informed decision to get back on it immediately. Like, maybe one of them wouldn't if they didn't decide as a group. They're all kind of enabling each other in that way. And then especially when Ewan McGregor's character is starting to move up in his life. He's got a job. He's doing well for himself. He's got his own place. He's not a junkie anymore. And then all of a sudden, these old characters, these old people that from his social circle just creep back into his life and start dragging him down. First, Begbie and then Sick Boy, and they're just like living with him and stealing his shit in a way where it's just like, damn, he's trying to climb out of this hole and they're just pulling him back in. It's really unfortunate, even if he's not necessarily on drugs at that moment in time. It's just there's some people that you honestly just have to cut from your life if you want to survive, really. And it's an unfortunate thing to have to learn because, you know, in my mind, I want to believe that everyone is capable of being saved, that everyone, if they were just told the right thing or communicated something in some way, that they could fix their own lives. Or if you give someone a raft, you know, to stop them from drowning, that they would get onto the raft and then be like, yes, I have this raft. But some people just want to fucking drown. Some people want to destroy their own lives, whether consciously or not. Some people are just looking to be someone who can complain about their life being shit and never do anything about it, despite the wealth of opportunities that they have to help get themselves out of that situation. And it's a really sobering and shitty, unfortunate thing to have to learn that I had to learn in my life. But some people you just gotta fucking let go. It's really sad, but I think the movie kind of handled that in an appropriate way.
Oh yeah, it handles that really well.
It
Like
makes
the whole
that choice.
betrayal at the end of this movie. Yeah, it feels like the whole movie is leading to that choice that he betrays his friends. You know, there's no other way of putting it. He betrays them. He fucking takes their money, runs away.
But you still support
get
him
it.
weirdly, yeah. Yeah, you get it.
Yeah,
understand
I understand it. And to say you understand it's just, well, you watch the whole movie and you're like, yeah, I understand why he'd do that. They're his mates, but they're also, you know, they are dragging him down.
Yeah.
You're right.
Like if you try to help certain people, they'll just, you know, take advantage of you and you're in a worse place because of it and they're not helped by the end of it.
Yeah. I just can't stress enough that moment works. When he takes the money, it just works. You understand what's happening.
Great song playing at the same time,
everyone's
too.
mind.
Really helps with the tension.
Yeah, it's emotional.
It's a
very
great,
energetic
dramatic
despite...
revelation.
Yeah, just like, I'm actually just noticing right now, just like how awesome it is to imagine, like, you got this bassy kind of like boom, boom club song playing during a very tense and silent moment taking place in the universe of the film. You know, just the contrast between those two things. It's like very internal. That's like a heartbeat kind of for the character. So that works super well.
Right. That's how it serves as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just scanning my notes in case there was anything else I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, this was the first time I noticed in the movie that, or maybe I did another time, but just didn't connect to the title. But the room that he goes through withdrawal in his parents' house there's trains all over the wall, and I guess I didn't connect that
the train
the first time. But yeah, not only does that work for the title, but I think it also serves like a bit of an extra purpose in terms of like, I guess the emotions of the characters and their relationships, because it is really fucking sad in a way for him to be experiencing all of that in that room, because that wallpaper, whether it's trains or anything else that's like really childlike, you understand at that moment that these parents that are like so disappointed in him after that taxi ride home where they just didn't even say a word to each other after he'd overdosed, after they thought he got clean again, they're at their last straw to try and help save their son. And just the visual of something so childlike, like train wallpaper in a room, like that's clearly his old room from when he was a child. Just imagining like he's still their little baby in a way, right? Like what happened in between him just being an innocent child and now him being someone who's like literally dying from heroin and just keeps overdosing and can't get his life back on track. Just just imagining what those parents are going through is just lots of context from that.
Yeah, that whole low point in the movie is really memorable.
Yeah. That's an awesome set. Yeah, and how it stretches out during the scene.
They just pull the bed back into like a big hallway, all practically too. Very cool.
Yeah, it looks great. That baby looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if it looks real, but it looks cool, and the face on it is scary.
Yeah.
I think.
The face is creepy. It made me think of Brazil or something.
Yeah, it stays with you, and the way it's edited too. Like there's a flash frame of it.
The editing's
You're like,
amazing.
Yeah. Just that entire sequence is just so perfect, because even the song that the schoolgirl character sings, you hear very faintly in the background earlier in the movie when he's like laying on the couch when she told him he has to sleep on the couch and he wakes up there. It's like the exact same song. So there's like that reincorporated. You've got like all of his like insecurities and fears and like Spud in prison uniform, just like, you did this to me, almost like fucking like Ghost of Christmas Past or some shit. I don't know, like some sort of like apparition.
Tommy like leaning against the wall.
Yeah, and even if we ignore the purposefully metaphorical nature of how Danny Boyle presents a film like this, someone going through withdrawal symptoms can experience a lot of really terrifying hallucinations in a sort of fever dream way. Like your body does a lot of negative things to you and can make you in this kind of like anxiety induced hallucination sort of thing. You know, it's like if anybody's been really sick and had a fever dream sort of thing, you know, like you would probably understand what I'm talking about. So it works really well.
And he's gone completely cold turkey, hasn't he? In that
yeah. Yeah, no methadone.
Yeah.
And I just love the justification from the parents. They're like, you remember you said that it just makes you worse. And so you're lying to us right now and we're going to keep you in here. And it's like, shit, I guess they have to. Awesome movie.
It is an awesome movie.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best. It's definitely Danny Boyle's best movie for me.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very stylized. He's a very stylized director.
Yeah, there's very little I dislike about this movie. I'm pretty invigorated actually every time I watch it, and I can put it on at any point and enjoy it. So I mean, this is a 5-star for me. I like pretty much everything about it. Love the characters. Love that music. It's just it's so memorable as well. So many great scenes. It's like difficult to choose like the best scene or the best visual metaphor or the best bit of dialogue. It's just amazing all around.
Yeah. I'd go right there with you, Alex. 5 stars. I love this movie. It's very funny and it's very creative.
9 out of 10 at least.
Nice.
Will it be a 10 at some other point? Maybe it will. I don't know. Things change. 9, love it. It's up there. Iconic, classic. Yeah, just all around really great. I guess it's time to talk about Terminator 2. Trainspotting.
Trainspotting.
You'd think that the only reason to call it T2 would be to intentionally confuse people. Because Terminator 2 already has T2. There was one movie that people thought of when you heard the words T2, and now there's 2 movies?
I think it's a bit of a running thing with this movie where it does struggle to find its identity.
That's a good way to put it.
But I'll introduce it first.
Sure.
Yeah, T2 Trainspotting's from 2017. It's just a follow-up, the same characters 20 years later, same team, Danny Boyle, John Hodge. It's based, again, on some of the stuff from Trainspotting, the book that wasn't included, as well as the book Porno, also by Irvine Welsh. So, yeah, I'm really mixed on this movie. There's a bunch of stuff I really enjoy about it, and there's a lot of character moments I enjoy, lots of creative stuff in there, but I think overall it kind of misses for me. I'm just not fully satisfied. I feel like at the beginning I'm like really into it, but there's a huge chunk in the middle where it completely loses me and it kind of wins me back over at the end somewhat. And I'm also confused on whether my affinity for this movie is just like me being manipulated by just showing scenes and like music, the exact same music from the original. And just what it means and how much, because that is part of the story. They directly acknowledge just how similar it is, just in ways to the first Trainspotting. But I'm still trying to grapple my head around how I feel about that side of it. I've only seen this film. This is only the second time I've seen this.
Okay.
Which, for how much I like the first one, it seemed, I don't know, I feel like I should be more into it if it was something I enjoyed more.
Yeah, I watched them back to back, so I'd say Danny Boyle's direction is still very strong. I think that's one of the strongest parts of the movie. It looks pretty good. It's got a unique look too. It doesn't just look like the first one. Yeah, I think he really, like, I've never seen a sequel like it, you know? I got to give it that. It's very unique sequel.
It is unique. It's half an hour longer than that first Trainspotting.
That was what scared me, was the runtime. But I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. This is the first time I watched it. I was kind of postponing watching it. 2017 movie. I haven't even done my 2017 list yet, so I was like, I'll just watch it then.
Yeah.
I think it's very well made and was surprisingly still funny at many of the points where it tried to be funny. And I love the
loads
humor.
of good humor.
Really great visuals at quite a few moments. The shadow of his mother is so striking and communicates in the same way that I was praising Trainspotting 1, just like communicating an emotion. How do you do that? How do you get a visual feel for what you want to communicate about the character? There are moments of that in this film that I was just like, okay, wow, that's like such a great way to show that. The upside down animals running projector when they're like doing drugs again or whatever, like that was an awesome visual. A lot that I really like about this movie. The one thing that kind of drags it down is like it has this unshakable feeling of being completely unnecessary and not fully. I guess this is just another way to say the same thing. It's just it doesn't realize its purpose in the same way that the first film does. And then what makes it extra silly is that it turns into kind of like a more stereotypical normal movie plot-wise. You have an actual villain. Begbie wasn't the villain in the first movie. He was a character that just got what he deserved. He wasn't the villain, but now he's the villain. And there's this whole sequence at the end. It's like that's what's being built up to is like him that just happens to get out of jail at the same time and then happens to blah, 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 some conveniences. And as we said, the first movie is very silly too, but I don't know if we're getting as much out of the silliness or as much, there has to be some sort of trade-off and we don't get as much out of this movie, I don't think.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier with the narrator and the narration aspect, I can't remember if there's any. It's definitely completely different to the first movie where it's Renton's from his perspective and it's flipped in T2 where like he lies to the characters in the story and you don't know as the audience that he's lying to. So he's being an unreliable kind of character. And it is like a spin from the first one, but it is a different vibe because every time it does get more cartoony in that first one, it is coming from him, from his kind of mindset, from that character. His narration is like all over the place. It's clearly all coming from him, whereas T2 feels more like a novel kind of translated beat by beat to a film or something. It's more focused on the characters independently or something. It's just messier. It doesn't come together as cleanly. It doesn't feel as focused, as you say. And you kind of hit the nail on the head for me with Begbie. I think for me, he is what pulls this movie down a bit more than everything else.
Yeah, it feels weird. Like, is that like that's the point of the movie almost? Like that seems to be like that was the climax. But like, what is Trainspotting even about then? If it's about like not getting beaten up or killed by a dude, I thought it was about drugs.
It gets so silly with him to the point where it's like him breaking out of the hospital with the cop being nice to him, and then on top of it, he like goes back to his like family home or whatever and like lives there for a bit. It's like
that was kind of funny, though.
It's kind of that's the thing. It is funny. There's definitely a lot of humor, but it just doesn't. And maybe this is my problem for contrasting it too much to the first one, but I can't help it because the movie itself is constantly reincorporating the first, even shots from the first movie, like all the time.
It's the only 4K footage we'll get. I was so mad because I'm watching a 4K Blu-ray of the sequel, and I'm like, just release one of the first one. Like I see the footage right there. Like you could edit together half of the first movie just through clips from the second one. Fuck, someone should do that. Just change the audio. It looked great. It looked fantastic, actually. The way they looked like amazing. It looked like a proper restoration. I'm like, fuck, just release that.
Yeah, they should.
The Blu-ray I had of the first one didn't even have English subtitles on it. I'm like, what is this shit? You think that there would be like a special edition or something? I don't know. Like it's a iconic, popular, like culture-defining movie that's been parodied, many times. You'd think that, I don't know, fucking release a 4K Blu-ray. I'm so mad.
I don't know. This movie doesn't really stick with me as much. It's not as memorable. I think that's what I would criticize it for. The baby, all the stuff, him falling in the toilet, him overdosing on the carpet. There's none of that in this movie, really. There's some shots I really like. I think visually it's very strong. and it's very creative, and it's how like it presents it. I think the movie's more about modern day stuff. Like it's trying to have a big comment on like social media and like, I don't know, we're always recorded, stuff like that, right? Because they cut the security cameras a lot. They have another choose life speech in this, except he like talks about Twitter. What did you guys think of the choose life speech in this one?
See, I kind of love the reincorporation of the choose life speech in this movie.
Sure.
It's a totally different emotion from the character in a that's just revealing something else about him. Because for the first part of the movie, he finds out his mum died, and like there's this huge gap in his knowledge because he ran away. So it's him coming back, and he's obviously going through a lot of shit at that time. And he's like caught off guard in this restaurant when he's asked like, what is choose life? And he kind of goes off into this rant. And you mentioned earlier, Adam, just with the imagery of like his mum missing from the table, and just the way that sequence is tied together, and the way it goes from being comedy and it slowly kind of gets more and more emotionally intense as he goes into it. And just the way that sequence come together is one of the higher points for that character in terms of what he's expressing to me.
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely. That's a strong part of the movie.
Yeah, I liked that scene a lot.
I like that part.
The only moments within it that I was kind of when he did. It sounded like a little bit preachier when he was like the social media, and because the movie's made in 2017, it's like kind of, I don't know. There was just a bit too much of that at that time. It's a big part of the movie,
I think. It's like the digital age, like even the way the movie's shot. And
I don't know if
even
it is
with
a big part of the
there's
movie.
a lot of camcorders that are like really small, and he like put it on like a microphone, like that one scene when they're singing about killing Catholics.
Yeah.
Like there's stuff like that, or the low light chase sequence, like when
faces.
Bigby's chasing him. There's a lot of commentary like that in the movie, and even to just the look of it, it looks like a very digital film, and I think that's intentional.
Yeah.
I mean,
it goes back to Danny Boyle's radical style.
Danny Boyle does a lot of digital stuff.
Yeah. And, they cut back to footage of like from the first movie, and it's done in the style of like CCTV footage, and they censor their faces. They put like animated people over their faces. And he's going for something like that with this movie for
Even
sure.
The way they do flashbacks is creative. Because that's such a like annoying trope in like sequel movies where there's like a huge chunk of time that's missed, and so let's just fill it all in with flashbacks or whatever, but it's never the main focus. It's normally relegated to kind of brief imagery that's just filling in little gaps. Or
even the beginning of the movie starts with the last shot of Trainspotting 1, and that's a great way to like tie it in. Like, okay, especially if you're watching them back to back, right? It's like, okay, I'm actually seeing a continuation of that story.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel so like jarring.
I love when Ewan McGregor falls off the person's car in this film later into the movie after he's being chased by Begbie.
Yeah.
And does the exact same face again. And it's so good at like the performance of just capturing that exact same expression was like, hell yeah. Like that was so easy to recognize, and just such a perfect expression of being able to do the exact same thing again. Speaking of that chase scene, it was kind of funny that he was on top of a roof being chased by Begbie, and Begbie had a knife, because at that moment I was like, well, I guess this is T2 now. This does feel like Terminator.
Oh shit, yeah.
There we go. Now it's T2.
What did you guys think of the Iron Brew tap moment? What did you think of that? Did you even know what Iron Brew is?
It's the specific
Iron
beer?
Brew tap moment.
Or what?
Beer?
When is that in the movie?
Iron Brew tap?
Yeah, in the bar scene where Renton and what's his face have a fight, and he like starts spraying Iron Brew, like it's like a Scottish like soft drink.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I assumed it was beer. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought,
I guess it would be weird for it to come out of one of those nozzles. You're right. But...
Yeah, and it's like orange. It's like bright orange.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's an interesting flavor.
That's funny.
The Scots,
I've never had that. Interesting.
I think probably one of my favorite parts of the movie, like narratively, in terms of like what works for it, entertainment wise, I guess, is the No More Catholics scene. I thought that was really funny and worked really well. And as it was setting itself,
that's a funny scene.
Excuse me. Sneeze. As it was setting itself up, I thought surely this would just be like a cringe, not funny scene, and like it almost seemed like a bit too stereotypical of like, oh, this is just going for like an awkward, we can't sing or whatever. But they actually handled it really well, and it was kind of funny because
it was funny.
what they wound up playing, a different movie would have Sick Boy play something more complicated, and then it would be like, okay, well, why does he know how to do this? And like, you know, add too many chords, and it's like, okay, well, they didn't rehearse this. How does that make sense? But the song was kept simplistically enough, and it was still catchy at the same time.
Yeah.
That it made sense for what it was, and I thought the humor was really funny. Also, the pin numbers being 1690 for all of their credit cards was pretty funny.
That is a good payoff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Some good stuff.
There's still some gross out stuff in here too, which I appreciated. The stuff with the strap on, like they have this whole scheme going with this woman where she like fucks guys and they record it, and like that's the gross out stuff. Like you see them like bend over, like shots of their ass. Like
oh no,
like pukes in that bag when he's
yeah. That's what I was thinking of when I thought gross out, Alex, was
that too.
Puke on the face.
Yeah.
Inside the bag, like that was
that too. That was
crazy.
Gross.
The Spud Renton dynamic's one of my favorite things from this movie because,
of course,
Renton gives him the idea to kind of try and re-channel that addiction energy, become addicted to something else, he says. And it kind of transpires that Spud learns that he's like a writer, a good writer, and it's kind of that meta thing where it's like, how do we end this story? And it's one of the things I like most about the movie is because he is the sympathetic angle. You can't not feel sorry for him. And it is a satisfying way to conclude his character, and it makes sense, I guess, him being the one to deck Begbie at the end.
Yeah, with a toilet.
Yeah. Lots of great visuals. The story just isn't as... it's not as tight, and it's not as purposeful. And so for a movie that's 2 hours, it's not like it was paced terribly. I didn't feel too bored or anything. Maybe coming up to the end of the movie, I was a little zoned out. But in terms of what I retain from it after having watched it, I can name more things that were in the first Trainspotting than I can in the second Trainspotting, and then you have to ask yourself, well, what happened with the extra time? How does that make sense, you know?
Yeah, there's the vajazzle joke as well. I'm not crazy about. That was like a weird dated thing. It was like a huge joke. Like in the UK for some reason.
Okay. I had no idea.
Like randomly shoved into this movie. Yeah. It seems like really fucking weird that's...
You know what fucking sucked is the subtitles on the 4K Blu-ray, which is like completely international, by the way. Like it has like Cantonese subtitles. Like it has every subtitle. But the English subtitles on the 4K Blu-ray, they translate like cultural
I noticed that.
Scotlandisms, I guess, where they have let's see, I wrote a couple down.
Oh, that's very weird.
Just away for a slash mate got translated to just away for a piss mate.
Huh?
Just like the lassie says got translated in the subtitles to just like the lady says. Have you knobbed her? I have knobbed her and I'll knob her again got translated to fuck instead of knob. And that was kind of annoying because, like, I would just like... That's not the job of a subtitle. The subtitle is to tell me what the words that they said, not translate. Fuck that.
That changes the meaning of everything.
Yeah, go fuck yourself.
It changes the meaning of the movie.
Yeah, shit subtitles. It only happened like 5 times, I guess, but it was like, come on, really? Why?
That's weird.
Yeah, that is super strange.
Just do the anime thing where you have like a separate subtitle that says, this is what this word means. You know? Like if someone's really confused and they don't understand the cultural context of something, that you can always give them that information. But I would like to know what words they said, please.
One of the bits of conflict I do quite enjoy in T2 is when they go back to that idyllic location where their friend Tommy, like, we didn't die there, but they take his ashes there or whatever. And that they have like a pretty bad argument, Renton and Sick Boy, where they kind of hold each other accountable for their terrible actions, and it's like kind of illuminating, fun way for the drama between them to come about. Because at first, there's some of Sick Boy's scenes that I'm not in love with in this movie. Like, there's one particular scene where he has this kind of mustache twirly like monologue he's saying to
Oh yeah,
I can't remember her character's name.
yeah.
He's like in the room with the woman character, and he's like, "I'm gonna destroy his life" or whatever, and it makes sense for the character. He's mad, but there's just something away that scene transpired. It was like going just a bit too far into that cartoonish way, just like earlier in the movie where Begbie was doing the whole, breaking out of jail thing. It's just going cartoonish a step above to a point where I'm being pulled out of the movie in ways that just is not a thing that happens in the first one.
Yeah, there are some moments that just don't work well. Still, I surprisingly enjoyed it. I thought I was going to hate it, but at the end of the day, it's still a Danny B joint.
Yeah.
He makes really interesting movies to look at. My biggest fucking problem with his style in this movie that I don't have a problem with in many of the other movies is for some reason they do this linger on the single frame at the end of the shot thing about, I don't know, 100 times in this movie, and I don't remember that.
They do it a lot.
I don't remember that happening in the first movie. I do remember that happening like maybe twice in the movie Sunshine. I do remember that happening maybe like, I think that happened in, I can think in 28 Days Later that happened. In some of his other movies, he does that a couple times. It didn't happen in Trainspotting. And now in T2, Terminator 2 Trainspotting, you're doing it like 100 times. It happened way too many times. And it was just like, it was annoying. It was irritating after a while. Otherwise, love the style, love the visuals, love the lighting. Really improved lighting in this film, actually. That's one of the aspects I would say is improved.
Yeah, the lighting was very good, actually.
Yeah, great lighting. If we want to do ratings, I don't know about you, but I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10, closer to a 6 than an 8, but fuck it, 7 out of 10. It has its issues, but at the end of the day, it's Danny Boyle, I guess.
I'm actually, despite how negative sounding I might come across, I did enjoy this more the second time than I did the first. I got a lot more out of it. I did feel satisfied through what the main characters go through. I did get the beats I was after. And again, that creativity, it is fun to see him go back to that energy from the 90s to try and recapture that. And I think he does manage it overall. It's just, yeah, you're right. It doesn't feel totally essential. And there's just some things here and there I wish could have been tightened up, or maybe get that rundown, the running time a little bit down or something. But I do like it more than I don't. I'd give it a 3.5 stars or 7, the same as you.
Sure.
Bazinga.
Yeah, I still think it's a very entertaining movie. When I first saw it, I didn't like it at all, but I think that's because I hadn't seen the first Trainspotting in like years. Now watching them back to back, I liked it a little more, and there were things I actually remembered. Like I didn't remember Tommy at all. Like that I remembered, and I'd go 3 out of 5 on it, and that's an increase I think from when I saw it the first time.
Cool.
But yeah, it just doesn't really stick with me, but it's still an entertaining film, and it's still very funny. Acting is still very good. You know, Danny Boyle's got a very unique style and how he directs movies, and it's definitely interesting to look at. It's got a lot of
I like
cool
the final
stuff
shot
in it.
and the credit sequence.
Yeah, I do too. I love the final, how the movie ends in the Trainspotting room with the wallpaper. Yeah, 3 out of 5.
I would like that a bit more if I wasn't in love with the practical effects from the first movie, because I don't like the symbolism of taking a shot from the first movie that was done practically and then doing it in CG, regardless of whether or not it would even be possible practically. Obviously, you know, that's a little bit crazier this time. You can't really do it like that. But the symbolism of that, when we, you know, modernizing films and just the issues that we always talk about on this podcast, rubs me the wrong way a little, but otherwise on its own it works, I guess.
Yeah, I started feeling that tinge until it was like, oh, it looks like this actual symbolism is like awesome. This is an awesome way to start the credit sequence. Yeah,
there is more going on in this movie to make it's not like Space Jam: A New Legacy. There's actually story and characters here. It's not just making references to the first movie.
Yeah.
It is just a really good point to start a story as well. There is a lot of unsolved mystery with the characters and a lot of it baked in drama.
In the first one, they talked about the baby. They didn't know who the father was. And in the second one, they addressed that it's actually who's the white hair guy? The guy with the white hair.
Sick boy. I mean, they alluded to it in the first film without.
They did allude to it, but in this movie, they basically hammered it in,
Okay.
like hammered home, like, yeah, he is the father. So I thought that was good. There's some things like that are resolved. The girl from the first movie comes back. She has a job. Like,
Oh yeah, I like the lawyer scene.
Oh, because she's a lawyer.
Yeah.
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 yeah, like that's all good.
Everybody else aged 20 years, and she aged like 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly McDonald. Yeah.
All right. I guess one final thing I'll say about this. In the grand scheme of things, it's pretty fucking good for a movie that's a sequel that's made like 20 years after the first one, in comparison to other movies that have done that sort of thing in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of those, and they suck for the most part. So, in
This
that,
is a different
looking
level
at
entirely.
it through that lens, especially, it's pretty good.
Yeah. This and Mad Max Fury Road. That's all you need to see.
If we want to call
From
that a
that
sequel,
genre.
I guess. It's not like
Yeah,
a
it is a
direct
sequel.
sequel, but anyway.
Not a direct sequel. Yeah.
Okay, let's do a couple questions here from the Sardonicast community. Head over to the subreddit suggestion thread if you want to leave questions of your own. Let's do this one then from Crow Guys. Is there a type of film criticism that you don't consider valid or just don't feel comfortable using?
I feel like I have an answer for this, but I would have to refresh myself. I would have to think about it. I feel like I've felt that way before, but I don't know. It's almost like more of a philosophical question in ways.
Yeah, it is.
Because I don't know. You know what? Maybe my answer is no, that I think every criticism is valid, not necessarily... Because every person's a different person, you know? Like, there are some things that I personally wouldn't consider to be valid criticism for my own thing that might be valid criticism for somebody else, right?
Yeah.
I guess what I like to see least in other criticisms that I've seen are ones that kind of invalidate other people's perspectives and experiences. That's often what I fight back against the most when I'm anticipating like an argument, like preempting.
Yeah.
Usually it's against the people who inevitably just go like, oh, I can't believe you said this about, like, I can't believe you didn't like it. Like, there's unironically people that don't like that I didn't like Luca, but I wasn't incorrect about anything factually in the film. So we're really just talking about my experience, which is in my own brain. So it's really weird when you disagree with me about what's going on in my own brain. It's really weird for another person to have absolute certainty or any kind of perceived authority over what someone else's experience should be or is. Like, that's fucking weird to me. Like, I'm sorry for not liking something that you did, but you have to recognize that not everyone's brain is the same, right? I don't know.
Everyone's got an opinion. Can't really say it. You could just, at the end of the day, it's your opinion. You just say that, right? That's just your opinion, man.
When I think about personal connections with films, the reason why they're personal is like, okay, so perhaps someone watching Trainspotting will have like personal experiences with drugs in their own life. That's going to influence how they feel about a film. Perhaps there's a person that's watching a movie that really doesn't like a certain actor that's featured prominently in the film. Perhaps there's a person watching a movie that has bad experiences with a type of character that maybe the film is painting as a protagonist, and they just can't get behind that, and they don't trust them because it reminds them of somebody else in their life. You know, a connection that you have with a film, whether you're rating it or just expressing how you felt about it and the story and everything that goes into it, that's your personal connection. So it's weird for somebody else to try to have authority over what you experienced when films should be personal. Everything that's happened to you up to this point in your life of you watching the film is going to influence how you feel about it. So obviously, a person that doesn't have a lot of experiences with one particular thing is going to view a film differently than somebody who has a lot of experiences with that particular thing. If you're a musician and you watch a movie about music, right? And it's not necessarily about being correct or informed on certain things, but having personal experiences in your life. Like, what else is... You know, like what is art if you're not supposed to have that happen to you? I just don't get some people. I don't know.
Yeah, I would never describe it that way, that there's types of film criticism I don't consider valid, even though I'm sure there are examples where there are kind of pet peeves that bother me. Like, if you're purposefully ignoring some of the artistic intent purely to like slant your reviews for some kind of like political agenda or something like that.
Yeah, that's weird.
That can get tiring.
Or even any kind of agenda, not even just political.
But then I would, but at the same time, I wouldn't say I don't want any reviews that touch politics in any way. You know, I mean, I just want interesting discussion about film to be as open as possible. And I mean, the filtering system is kind of the response from people out there.
I mean, even shit that I find personally invalid, I would never say is like objectively invalid, because, you know, I can't possibly, you know, there are other perspectives of people who would say like, no, this is how film should be viewed at in a review or something, or this. There are people that will make the argument that like everything's political, you can't escape politics, you know, and there's truth to that as well. I've got hippie brain, and I think that like everything's subjective. So, I mean, literally, you can't perceive anything in the universe without your brain and you being the subject of that. So even factual, objective things, right? This is a whole other philosophical conversation, right? But that doesn't just relate to movies, where you know, you can debate about true objectivity and what that means. Am I in a simulation right now? I don't know. Or am I like an alien that was placed onto this planet and wiped my memory? Like, I have no way of verifying any of this, right? But anyway, it's a way too complicated of a conversation to just relegate it to films. And I think that's part of the reason why there is such contention in this category, is because I guess people just either might think of this as too simplistically, or just have different brains and not agree about it being philosophical. You know, I don't know. I'm just rambling now. What am I even saying?
Well, there was an interesting reply to this comment from another listener saying, I feel like comparisons are mostly unfair. Like, Whiplash was good, but I feel like Black Swan did a better job at telling the artist loses self/sanity in pursuit of art story. I want to know your guys' thoughts on that kind of idea.
If I were to inject more of my hippie brain onto this conversation, you can't think of anything without comparison, because there's no point of reference to it. Our human brains are literally just like, when a part of your brain lights up and you associate like a word, right? If let's say someone says the name Ralph, right? I already have a mental image of somebody I know named Ralph in my brain, and that's going to influence what parts of my brain light up when I hear the word Ralph, right? Or if somebody doesn't know a person named Ralph, then maybe nothing lights up in their brain, right? People have negative experiences for certain words, for certain colors, even for certain numbers. You know, like there's no such thing as not associating things with other things. You always have to compare. If, let's say, Tommy Wiseau's The Room was the first movie ever made, and there was no such thing as another movie, then what obviously people would consider it to be very different. It would be like, oh, a miracle has been presented. What is this? Images that are moving, right? This would be considered some sort of great feat. So obviously, in order to judge The Room, you have to have that in the context of other movies existing. In order to judge any film, you have to have the context of other movies also exist. Therefore, here's my perspective, right?
You need the context.
Yeah. And, you know, depending on how many movies you've seen, from what genre, from what time period, those are going to influence how you feel about certain films, you know? So it's unavoidable, really.
Right.
But also comparing can be very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Did either of you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't. I think you guys
I think
nailed
we went
it.
on that one pretty deep.
Okay, yeah. Thanks.
Let's do this one from Rafia Nurik. What's your favorite saw trap? What is the saw trap? None from the last one. Definitely not
That's
one
a
from
great
that.
idea.
Damn.
I really like the merry-go-round one with the shotgun.
That is a good one.
I was thinking that in my head, but I wanted to cycle through more to see if there were other ones. But like, it's so funny. It's so funny because all these people are like begging for their lives. Like, I've got a family. It's like, oh, you were so nice to me. I did everything right in the company and for you. And like, just that dynamic, like whether or not it's for humor or if someone's taking the scene unironically and just being like, oh yeah, this character is now forced to live with the consequences and value lives over others. Like, that's funny. It's great, and it works with the themes of like healthcare, deciding who lives and who dies, blah blah blah. You're just the ultimate
Yeah.
end result of this jigsaw mentality, blah, 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 blah. I love it.
Saw
Yeah, that's a
six
great
people
one.
on the merry-go-round. Yeah, it is a great one. It falls in line, and it's just a great trap. Like the concept of it, it's very straightforward.
Yeah, it's
Like
hilarious.
anyone could kind of make that. It's hilarious how it's presented.
Yeah, I don't know why. For me, one that stands out in my head is the razor wire maze. Is that from the first one?
That was a short part in the first one, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know why. For some
that is a
reason,
good
that
one.
that one's really cemented in my mind. I think it was the moment I knew that Saw was like, oh, there's something about this that's like really alluring.
Mhm.
There's something really fucked up and dark about this, and just the whole like, the way it's implemented into the story, like you're saying with the carousel one.
Yeah, I think my favorite, if I were to go take out the humor element and just one that, is really scary to me conceptually, I think that the one from Saw 1 where the guy has a match and he's looking, there's numbers all over the wall, there's glass on the floor, and his body is coated in a flammable, like sticky flammable material, and he has to open the safe to get an antidote to cure the poison that will kill him otherwise in the amount of time that it would take for the candle to go. I guess it's not a match. He has like a candle that he's holding, and then eventually over time the candle gets down to the flammable part on his body and burns him alive. I think that that's terrifying. Some have called that an unwinnable trap, and it added it to like Jigsaw's like, oh, why would he do this? This is like unwinnable sort of thing. Like that guy has no chance.
Yeah.
However, there are others that have hypothesized that like if he had the candle on everything for like a bit and then blew it out, that certain numbers would like glow in the dark or something. Like maybe, perhaps, like that's a cool way to think about it. Like maybe if it was like a digital keypad or something that he could open the lock with after. But yeah, like that just conceptually is like, oh, that's awful.
Yeah, I need to rewatch that first Saw movie. It's been a long time.
It's dank. There's a 4K now.
Yeah, the reverse bear trap is good.
Yeah, bear trap is pretty iconic.
You don't see it acted out
In
the
Saw
first one.
7?
In Saw 7,
You do. Yeah.
you do. It's against Jigsaw's wife.
Hell yeah.
That excellent actress.
That's right.
The best actor.
You see her jaw ripped open.
The most
pretty cool,
beloved
though.
character.
It's a pretty cool trap. Yeah. Up there with the journalist character.
Let's do this one from Doo-Wop Cartoons. Do you think we'll need to reevaluate Pixar as a generic animation studio that go... Wait, sorry, this is weirdly written.
Already
that
done
was
it.
elevated to an unreasonable standard due to having 5 once-in-a-generation group of directors, John Lasseter, Brad Bird, Pete Docter, Andrew Stanton, and Lee Unkrich. All the best Pixar movies were made by those 5 guys who collaborated with each other, and all the bad ones, aside from Cars 2, were not made by them. I get the impression Pixar movies will start being more boring and lackluster going off their next 2 projects, Turning Red and Lightyear, which look like spoofs of Pixar movies, as those guys seem to be retiring.
Yeah, those guys are gone.
Did you see the trailer for their latest? This Turning Red
I did.
thing?
It's
I
like
did not see
Canadian
Turning
or
Red.
something now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's set in Ontario, Canada.
Ugh, they just pick a setting and a culture and then throw in some fish
Yeah.
people or something. What'd they do this time?
Well, yeah, what do they turn into? This time it's a panda thing.
When she gets, I guess, embarrassed, that would be it. Yeah, that makes sense. Turning red. When she gets embarrassed, she turns into a big, floofy, I don't know, like neighbor Totoro kind of character that's red.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And oops, she's big and floofy. Who knows? I wasn't actually like that disgusted by the trailer or anything. I didn't look at that and be like, oh, come on, here we go, Pixar. Like, I'll see how it is when there's more footage or what the movie's like. I don't know. It really just, they didn't show enough of it for me to be able to get a firm grasp of what the movie would be like. It was just one moment, just one scene. So
Yeah,
The teaser.
it's the concepts that I'm really allured in by them, and that's Turning Red isn't that
Yeah, it's not that
interesting to me
alluring.
on that level. And the same with Lightyear, and the same with Luca for me. I know lots of people love it, but it wasn't really
Yeah,
my cup of tea
even
for what I'm
Luca.
after.
Exactly. Maybe they're just not for me anymore. They're going for a different
Maybe it's
kind of
shifted to
audience.
the next generation.
It totally shifted. But it is kind of a generic, and that's how they feel. I wish they would take some time and and work on them. Because Pixar did have that reputation of making just fucking excellent movies.
Mhm.
Those Toy Story movies are fantastic. Even the fourth one, which I said I would never watch. I like the fourth one. I like it just fine. That's, I don't know what they're doing anymore. It's just like all the passion is gone. It is just like an assembly line kind of
Mhm.
machine producing animated movies every year.
Mhm.
And every year they win the Oscar. And it's gotten kind of boring. I mean, it's been 2 decades of like the same shit.
Yeah, and a lot of them are just
Yeah.
working for regular Disney animation now anyway. Where it's like, why even
Yeah,
have the
then
two
there's
separate
that,
brands? It's like
Pixar-
Pixar and then like Disney,
Right.
and it's like, okay, well, one of them's making
Yeah.
Zootopia. and the other
Pixar used to
one's-
be unique. They used to actually be like the only game in town, and DreamWorks.
They changed the industry.
You have
I
Disney
mean.
Animation right next to them is Pixar. Like you have the same. Yeah, they're owned by Disney. and they're
Pixar is
both making
responsible
animated
for the
movies.
death of Western 2D animation.
kind of.
It's like 100%.
And like even the animated movies that Disney's making, sometimes they're better than the Pixar movies. Like I like Zootopia, I like Tangled a lot. I think Tangled is much better than most of what Pixar has produced for like the past 10 years, which is crazy.
Like the Lego movie or like Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's coming up other places now.
I don't think I have unrealistic expectations for them at all. I've been saying this shit since, I don't know, Toy Story 3. Like, it's been like a good 10 years where I felt this way, and it seems like other people are catching up
Yeah.
now. I don't know. So this is just
Yeah.
old news to me.
They can make great movies. They need to take their time and have a good idea, and don't just keep pumping them out every year, because that's what it is. It's like they just pump
Yeah.
one out a year to win an Oscar, keep people employed. It's fucked up. It's art. I want to see, like they made a Monsters Inc. show now, like on Disney
Mhm.
Plus with like
I saw
Mike.
the trailer.
It's like, what? I don't want to. Monsters Inc. used to mean something. Monsters Inc. used to be worth something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a Buzz Lightyear movie and shit. Like whatever. Dude.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Buzz Lightyear, like I don't know if I even want to see that. I'd rather see Toy Story 5.
With no Tim
Probably
Allen.
will.
Yeah, why they get rid of Tim Allen?
I don't know. He's problematic or something.
He's problematic.
I mean, he kind of is.
Yeah.
Coke
But
dealing.
still,
with
it's
it.
Buzz Lightyear. I mean, I can't really think
Yeah,
of
I wouldn't
anyone
want to
else.
recast him. You're right. I wouldn't want to
Right.
recast him.
It's perfect.
Keep the Tool time.
Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, he is problematic, for sure.
God, I love
Yeah.
it. Okay, let's do this one from Jen Rao. Trainspotting is a film that is deeply loved in Scotland and considered quintessentially Scottish. What films would you say are deeply loved and deeply ingrained with each of your individual cultures? So English, Canadian, and American.
I would say Italian more so. Like Godfather.
Yeah,
Not Tenet?
That's ingrained. Tenet for America? Nah. Chris Nolan's British, right?
I know.
So I wouldn't say him as American. I'd say anything Tarantino.
What's the most America movie? How about Team America World Police? That's what I would pick for Ralph.
Yeah. I'd say Top Gun. You want an
Borat.
American movie, watch Top Gun. Borat. Borat's like cynical.
What's
It's
the
a
most
critique of
Canadian
America.
movie? Or what's one that's even celebrated in Canada? Like, do we have a thing?
You have Kenny and
Let me
Spenny.
think. Oh yeah,
Surely,
like there was
Scott Pilgrim.
There's like there's some universally recognized Canadian properties. I think a lot of them are like television though. So like Trailer Park Boys is a big Canada thing. There's a movie
Oh,
called
yeah.
Fubar that I never watched, and it had a sequel, and I think that was supposed to be like a really Canadian thing. I'd have to watch it, I guess. Yeah, no fucking wonder. Like I'm just looking at this. It's like 4.1 thousand ratings on IMDb. It's like nobody's heard of this. Like obviously it's a Canadian thing. Like, there's some things that just don't escape Canada. But with Trailer Park Boys, it's on the US Netflix now, so it's being rediscovered again, which is nice.
Trailer Park Boys is big here.
Yeah.
People like
It
that,
wasn't for, I mean, the first 10, 15 years or whatever, and then yeah.
Wow, really? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been going on a long time. And then, like, I think 5 years ago, America was like, oh, shit, Trailer Park Boys, because it's on Netflix now.
It got its audience.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I see it
Okay.
everywhere.
That's crazy how a show could go on for 10 years, like no one watches it.
I mean, Canada watched it, but we're like nobody. So.
Yeah, like barely nobody. But now, like, oh shit, there's 10 seasons of this show I love. Like, and they just watch the whole thing. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
For shows, iconic shows for America, American Idol,
Yeah, reality
Jeez.
television in general.
reality television. I would say that is quintessential America, reality television.
Yeah.
You need to watch that.
Mystery
Or
Diners.
sports, Charles Styles.
Storage Wars.
Mystery Diners is fake as shit, so don't watch that. Well, they're all
Perfect.
fake. They're all fake in some way.
What about you, Alex?
Do you have like Love Island over there? No, as far as
Yeah, Love
films
Island.
go, James Bond, surely. For England, just any of the
I guess
James
so,
Bond
yeah.
movies or something like that.
And then
Yeah.
like Doctor Who or whatever.
Shaun of the Dead actually is quite a good one. I remember when that
Mhm.
film was coming out and how it kind of exploded and just really connected with everyone, not just Brits, to be honest, but it
True.
is deeply British. It's like set in London.
Yeah.
It's got like the whole cast of like just every character actor
Yeah.
from London from that time in it. I mean, yeah, great shit. Let's end on this one from Goosey McGooseface 2. Did the Trainspotting movies make you want to come to Scotland? Where would you want to go if you did? Love from Scotland, laddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to visit the worst toilet.
I don't want to go to that bar where they get mugged.
I don't think it really painted Scotland in a great light. there were no tourist attraction parts.
It paints the outdoors nicely.
Yeah. When he decides he wants to go on a hike and nobody else goes with him, and they just talk and they're sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to visit the UK at some point, regardless. I don't know. I would like to
Sure.
see the different things. If there's things there, I guess.
Scottish hills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never made my way to Scotland. I
Oh,
would like
shit.
to go.
Well,
I just, whenever I want to go somewhere, I want to go somewhere warmer. And Scotland's cold.
Yeah, I'll go to Scotland one day.
Yeah.
They better not rob me like they did in Trainspotting.
yeah, well, if you stand out like that.
Yeah, excuse me, may I use your bathroom, please?
Yeah, that's a funny scene.
That'll be me.
yeah.
All right, I guess that's it for questions.
Right.
And
Yeah, we did it.
there's a recommendation, and technically it's my turn, but I asked Ralph if we could trade because what I want to recommend is something that is long,
Because
and we're recording the next episode a week early because of a scheduling thing. So we should probably just do a regular length movie or whatever. So I'm swapping with Ralph. I'll recommend the episode after.
okay, cool. So
Cool.
I'll recommend. I got a few things here. I was thinking Terminator, but we just did T2.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just did Terminator
T2s,
2.
alright.
So
Yeah, we just did Terminator 2. I'm gonna do The Wrestler. The Wrestler from the
Okay,
year
cool.
2008, directed by Darren Aronofsky. I think we should watch
Awesome.
that.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So
yeah,
check that out.
That is far enough back for me that this would be a fresh experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same.
Yeah,
Okay, awesome.
cool.
If you don't want to be spoiled for The Wrestler, directed by Darren Aronofsky, check it out before the next episode. These episodes are published every 2 weeks. You can get them early as they're edited if you sign up for premium at sardonicast.com. It's only $2 a month. Also, patreon.com/sardonicast. You ever listen to those podcasts that like every podcast and they're like, yo, try this stupid piece of earbuds that we don't actually like, or try this stupid VPN that nobody cares about. Well, we didn't do that, so give us money on Patreon instead. Thank you, and we got merch, I guess. Have a happy Shrek and choose life. Thanks for listening,
Choose
everybody.
life.
Choose life.
Life.
Choose
It's
life.
shite being Scottish. All right, bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye. You know, I just want to mention I discovered so there's another like British thing.
Do
like,
you want
it's
this in the
pronounced
podcast?
weird.
Oh,
I
what
guess
is
we
it?
can just include it.
Oh,
It's
fine.
lieutenant. I was watching like 1917. They say lieutenant, and like
Oh,
British
yeah.
people say lieutenant, and apparently that's a thing.
Yeah.
Is that a thing, Alex?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
that's
is.
the thing.
They say lieutenant instead of lieutenant.
Mhm.
Yeah, you
I'm like,
should.
why lieutenant?
Yeah, I guess that's American
Jaguar.
spelling too. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's. I think it's just a British thing, and there's no like right tenant. What's lieutenant?
Yeah. Dude, I ain't got any answers for you, I'm afraid.
Lieutenant is the inverse version of Christopher Nolan's film Tenet.
Tenant.
It's the mirror version.
Lieutenant.
Yeah. All right, happy Shrek. Choose life, everybody. Bye bye. Sorry for the fake
Oh, yeah,
editing.
choose
Bye-bye.
life. Sorry about. Bye. Bye. Sorry.